live with episode 8-ish, 9, 10, who knows? The SydeBoob
Turn it
podcast,
on its side. Infinite episode.
the infinite episode. And we are here. We've got a lot to talk about. And then I feel like we got nothing to talk about at the same time because there was no fights last week.
Exactly, yeah, that's how I felt. And like the only card there was the Dana White Contender Series, which because I was working, I wasn't able to watch. So I thought maybe we could look out live or something, like see what the results were. Because I heard
Yeah,
a lot of underdogs won
I,
this
I,
week. So
I had a chance to kind of look and I saw a really good knockout that I thought I would bring to your attention, see if you saw that one. But I didn't get a chance to watch it because I'm not a big contender series person, really.
no,
Can you
I'm
see the
not, to be
screen?
honest. Yeah,
All right, so this chick was apparently a huge underdog, and she was one hit KO'd this chick, like
I actually
stiff as
saw
a
this.
board. Boom.
Yeah, I saw this on Twitter, and the way how I saw it on Twitter was a quote tweet saying, "I don't know how she got knocked out by that," but I'm like, "What? She leans into it. Like, what are you
Yeah, they're
talking
like, oh,
about?"
it didn't even look that hard. Like,
Yeah,
what? You're
like,
crazy.
like I'm not the hardest puncher in the world. Like, lean your chin into me, I'll knock you out. Like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
you lean your chin in, lean your head in, and I'm leaning in too, and we collide. That's
Yeah,
momentum. Like you're gonna
and
get knocked the fuck out.
I think as well she was striking at the same time, so she
Mhm.
wasn't expecting to get hit as well. So there's many factors into it. Like people think power is all what it takes. All that you got to do is shake the head enough. Like that's literally all you need to do.
Well, as like Conor McGregor said, it's not about power; it's about precision, right? Landing in that
Hmm.
right spot, lights out. She went
Yeah.
stiff, so
And then
huh,
notifications up.
yeah, no worries. So, oh, I know you've been really busy with work. I've been busy with work, and we have some notes and we have some things we want to talk about. But first, wanted to talk about this whole Facebook shenanigans here. So, in the lead up to the podcast, I was promoting stuff everywhere. I was putting it out on Twitter. I was putting it out um, on Facebook, and I got a little.
Oh, there we go. I don't know what's happened. Hello. Am I still recording?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. See, that's Mark Zuckerberg, mate.
Yeah, man. Like, what the heck?
Mark
This
won't let
guy.
us say anything. He's like, you know what? You're not taking the piss out of my website or my app.
Yeah, like that was weird.
It
Oh
was.
man.
The timing was proper weird. I
Anyway,
hope that stays so people can see how that played out.
yeah, man, that was crazy. But one of the things I wanted to talk about was this band that I got, and I sent it over to you. And it says, we removed your post, and I'm going to share the screen really quick to show you guys everything. Can you see the screen?
I can't know, but I'll take your word on it.
All right, let's see what happened here. All right, Facebook share. Now you should be able to see my post, right?
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Okay. So I said, and this seems pretty innocent. I know it's an ask, but if you're on Rumble, give us a follow. We removed your post because it goes against our community's policy on spam.
Yeah. It's so weird. Like, I can give you a good example, right? I write a lot of rap, yeah, and I like to share just the words of it onto my Facebook for my friends because like they were the people that were interested in it when I was young. And
Mm-hmm.
I write some messed up stuff. Like I was writing one where I was taking the mick out of the Catholic Church and the kind of stuff they do with children. Like if you want to get a hint what I'm trying to say. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
literally talking about vicars and priests. Never
Uh-huh.
been taken down once. But that, oh no, how dare you?
Right? Like if you're already on Rumble, give us a follow. How is that spam? How is that deceptive? It's
Yeah.
just, I think it's weird because it does show that weird double standard. How like so a site like Rumble will get limited and because it's more open and free speech, and then more like right wing conservative leaning. But then you can talk about anti-Trump shenanigans all you want, and you're perfectly fine. So it's just funny to me, like how all that shakes
Yeah,
out.
it is weird. Like maybe next time for an experiment, we say YouTube instead of Rumble, and see what happens. Look, they're doing it again. Mark, stop messing with our stuff.
Dude, what is going on? Why are we having
I
so
know,
much
yeah.
issues? Okay.
Mark Zuckerberg's not having it, mate. But yeah, it's like maybe next time as an experiment, we ask people on YouTube and see if there's any difference. Like word it exactly the same, but change Rumble to YouTube.
To the YouTube
And
link, and would it block the YouTube link, or that's
yeah,
just so weird. That's
I'm
weird that it happened
actively,
twice.
I know, yeah, while we're on this subject, I'm actively now tomorrow, I'm going to try and share Rumble videos, whether it's our own or just a random one. I'm going to try and find one that's a bit more like, not, I think I don't watch Rumble much, but I'm going to try and find one that's not as like controversial, that's quite that you'd find on YouTube. The same thing you find on YouTube, I find on Rumble, and I'm going to try and share that and share a YouTube one and just see
Let's
what
see if there's a
happens.
difference.
Yeah,
That's so bizarre, dude. And then as we're
it's
talking
weird.
about it, my camera and mic cut out twice.
Yeah, mate,
Conspiracy
they're on.
hat.
Yeah, they're on your computer already. It's like
It's so
I'll tell him
crazy.
like Paddy Pimblett told him, "You're a bloody lizard, mate. Stop it."
Dude, that was wild. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because I thought it was interesting, and I think it's funny because our channel doesn't cover anything that's really controversial anymore. Like our older
No,
stuff, we did kind of do a little bit of that, but like now we're
yeah,
talking sports, we're talking MMA, we're talking like trending news. It's just such a weird thing, man. It's crazy.
I know, yeah, and it's like even our last one because it was during the Trump his first election cycle trying to get elected, and I wasn't pro Trump at all. You wasn't really pro Trump. You were quite in the middle because you're a
Mhm.
libertarian. And so it's not even like if you looked at our last thing, it's like we were trying to get Trump in office or anything. Like
Right.
we even had a Trump fan on and debated him about why would you choose to have him as a second term and stuff like that, because
Mhm.
at the time he wasn't living up to his promises. So if anything, we were kind of not helping him, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah, for sure. And it's just so bizarre.
It is.
Anyway, I think one of the things, if you're going to look to us and say, you're doing something provocative on social media, look at our Twitter. I think
Yeah, yeah.
we both have had some fun with that over the last hour or two. Just kind of provoking some fighters.
Yeah.
Um, can
I
you,
don't know if you
or
saw
not
my
even
one.
in fighters, but you were talking about Mr. Beast,
Yeah, yeah. Mr.
and
Beast, Logan Paul. I did one about Mike Chandler. I don't know if you saw that,
I
where I was
did,
like,
yes.
I invited Mike Chandler onto the podcast 5 years ago, and he's not been on another podcast since because he's a man of his words. I thought that was quite funny.
And you did a shout out to Mike Bisping. Hey, Mike, we run a podcast. Come on. I try to goad Sean Strickland into the podcast because I really feel like he's somebody we could get if we kind of poke the
Yeah,
bear enough. I feel like
I
he's
do.
somebody we could get.
I do. Like, and especially with me being foreign to him, like, obviously, because I'm not from America. So I feel like that one could be one because I imagine he wants to say a lot of stuff to an Englishman, you know what I mean? So that'll be quite fun. And the
Yeah.
thing is with Sean, I am actually quite a fan of, I'm very mixed with him. Like, sometimes I'm like, mate, you sound like a bloody boomer talking about, like, oh, I said this to my girlfriend and my girlfriend said this back. And so, like, I think it would be quite fun conversating with him because I feel he's very human, Sean Strickland. Like, he won't be like guarding himself too much, which is total opposite to his fighting style. So what he does is guard himself and stay away.
No,
And
I
I'll
think
happily say that to him as well.
no, I've said it before. I'm a fan of Sean Strickland. I like his fighting style, and I think he's a pretty funny person when he's not
No,
being a complete and utter
yeah,
douchebag. But
I actually do love his style. Like, for the same reason why I kind of like his style is I like someone that can like judge range and use that range to their advantage. Like, and I think that was the great thing about the Izzy fight was thinking, who's going to get the range? Like, who has control of that range wins. And Sean asserted himself early on. And,
Oh yeah,
you know, so I'll give him that.
yeah. He did awesome in that Izzy fight. It was just constant pressure, constantly in Izzy's face. Didn't let him run away. So that was great. I don't know if you can see this here, but the Mike Chandler was supposed to be our guest 5 years ago. I have that up on the screen here as we speak.
I also feel he could be one that could like say something about us or something one day if you just keep poking him.
Yeah, no, I think those fighters who are like really big, but also like really heavy on social media, they could be people who could be kind of goaded into it. Like I don't think Mr. Beast would ever respond to us, but would Sean Strickland if we ever, poke that bear? I think he would.
I think you just got to find the right time and the right kind of wording. And because you see it all the time on his Twitter, he's always quote tweeting people, replying to people that are just like normal people. So, and people might go, "Oh, you guys are trash, try to goad people." Well, how else are we supposed to do it? Like, honestly, how else are we supposed to do it? Like, I could message him and say, "Oh, I'll give you $5,000 if you come on my podcast," but no, like, if I can goad him for free, I'd rather do that.
Yeah, exactly. And then as a small podcast, like how are we supposed to grow our brand, grow our persona, grow our, whatever, if we're not trying to put our name out there whatever way we can, that's ethical. I'm not trying to do anything, crazy or illegal or anything like that. But like we got to poke the bear. We have to. It's kind of like
how it's not exactly like we're poking like defenseless people. We're poking people that are world-class fighters that put us both out in one punch, you know what
together.
I mean? So, yeah. Like you could put us both in a ring with Sean Strickland and he would just have fun with us. Like I might talk about past training and fighting as a kid, but I think I'm older than Sean, or he might just be a little bit older than me. So, he's gonna kick the fuck out of me. Like
me too.
To put it into perspective, I'm like a bloody flyweight. You know what I mean? So.
I'm 6'2", I'm like 200 pounds, but if I was to cut, I'd probably be about welterweight, 170. I'm not a big person, but I'm 6'2".
You don't look like a heavyweight. That's crazy. Like I didn't know you were 6'2" either. Like that's mad. Like one thing I noticed in America, because I've been there twice now, people are bigger. Like people are just bigger. Like
it's
a thing. It is. You guys are fed like cattle. You know what I mean? So. Like, if you come to North England, we're all small. Like, we're all really small naturally. So, when I went out there, I was 16. No, the first time I went, I was 15. And in England, it was legal to smoke when you're 16. So, I was just smoking on the streets like it was normal in New York. And I was getting some strange looks. Like, I must have looked like a 10-year-old. Yeah.
That's funny. That's really funny. But yeah, so, I mean, we're big, but regardless of how big I am, Sean Strickland is significantly larger than me. I'm sure he's probably like 225 pounds plus before he cuts weight. So he would kick my ass. But that's the whole point, is to get him on a podcast where we can talk and not get in a cage with him where he would whip my ass.
Yeah. Do you know what though? I would do it. I would do it. I'm not saying this. I think I'd get success or anything like that. And maybe I wouldn't do it with Sean because I think he might go a bit too far. But with someone like O'Malley, who I think would be a bit playful with it and let me play and then he play back and give me a taste of what he's got, I'd love to do that.
Well, you guys are roughly, I mean, I don't know how big you are, but you said you're a flyweight, so what, 145-ish?
5'7". It'd be like him versus Marab, So.
Oh, yeah, 5'7". Yeah, that's about right. And speaking of Marab, you wanted to talk about kind of the shenanigans that are going on with Marab. You want to go over that, talk about that a little bit? Because I saw he had a cut, and apparently there's more.
So above his eye, I've got one here from fighting, a big cut. I don't know which eye it is. You can't really see it in this lighting, but he's got a big cut right above his eye, which anyone knows that's not a good thing. But I don't even know why he's shown people, to be honest. Like, I wouldn't ever let anyone know I've just shown all you guys because I'm not looking to fight anymore, But I would have tried covering this scar up, like if I was still fighting. So I wouldn't want people aiming for that scar and opening it up.
Yeah,
And
and
then
especially it's so close to fight time. It's not like it's gonna be
yeah,
100% healed. It's gonna be painful.
that's going to get opened in that fight. Without Sean O'Malley is precise with his shots, that is going to get opened. He's not going to avoid that jab for
No, he's
the
just
whole
gonna
fight.
pop it. Just keep popping that jab, and it's gonna pop
Yeah,
open. And even Dana White, I saw comments, and he's like, "Why would you post that? That's the stupidest thing you could possibly do. Like, you just giving
yeah.
your
He
opponent a
compared it
target."
to boxers, which made me laugh. He said like, I think almost word for word, he was like, "Our guys are stupid. Like, if
Mm-hmm.
this was a boxer, he would have kept it under wraps. No one would have known about it." But he said, "Our guys, they get a cut, they want to show it off for some reason." And I agree with that. I don't know what they gain from it. Like, part of me feels is Marab like making excuses before the fight with the cut. He's been on video partying and drinking. Like, I don't know if it's water he was drinking. Like, God knows. But and also now there's pictures of him with like a staph infection on his arm. So it's like they're perfect excuses. If you lose, you can go,
Mm-hmm.
well, I had staph, I had this cut that got into my eye, and I was
Yeah.
partying a bit. Like John Jones is famous
Yes.
for saying he used to do that on purpose.
Used it, he did that as a crutch to if he ever
Yeah,
lost. Well, I was partying, so it's like that built-in excuse. But also, could it be the fact that he's so confident that he's going to beat O'Malley
mm,
that whatever, that's just that
yeah.
lifestyle. Like, I'm going to beat him anyway. And then
But
whenever
I
he
mean, he
does,
should.
if he does beat him, he's like, oh, I wasn't even training. Look, I was partying. I had a cut. I had a
Yeah,
staph infection.
it'd look even better. But I think he should learn from his training partner Aljo with that, because Aljo had a similar kind of way of approaching that. Like Sean, or what's he going to do against me? I've seen him get out wrestled by this guy, that guy. What do you think I'm going to do to him? And mate, you don't want to have that mentality against a guy that can put you out in one shot, because he'll drop your guard like Aljo did, and he will. You know what I mean? So that's my worry. Is I want this to be a good fight because Marab's high energy, like he's
Mhm.
a bit different to Aljo the way how he fights. So it could be like
It's
I
gonna,
can
I think it's going to be a
I
tough
can
fight
see
for him.
Sean gassing early if Marab can get his game going, like similar to Bilal and Leon Edwards. Like Bilal got his
That
game going
constant
early.
pressure, that
Yeah,
constant, yeah, that's rough, man. Like that's hard to overcome.
that's it. And the mental fatigue of that, especially if you adjust the strike. I'm not saying O'Malley can't mix it on the ground or anything,
Mhm.
but he's primarily a striker. And I think I can't speak for wrestling, but when you are a striker, you're constantly thinking of distance. You're constantly thinking about where the feet are, like
Mhm.
where right my foot's on the outside of him. I can land my hook now. You know, little things like that. Whereas if Marab just doesn't let him like settle, doesn't let him take a step back because he's already there,
Yeah,
it could be a really interesting fight. Like I
and
can
you,
also see that working against him though, is him similar to Aljo walking onto something.
yeah, I think it could be that, but I think like you brought up the perfect example, Bilal versus Leon Edwards. Just Leon just got so tired of defending takedowns, defending that pressure, just trying that constant pressure. And Murad is like that. He's like a bulldog, man. Like he's in your face and he's got very, very good takedowns. But one of the things that I've seen is O'Malley has really good jujitsu. I don't know if you've seen him in some of the videos. Like
I
he's
have,
doing
yeah.
tournaments and stuff. Like he has really good jujitsu. So
I saw
I
him.
think
Go on, sorry.
no, I'm saying I just think he's putting himself out there to show, hey, you don't want to take me down, to kind of goad him into
Yeah.
being a stand up fight. In
Mm.
my opinion,
And that's clever. That's really clever. Like
100%.
because if you fear him how he is on the ground, you're not going to take him there. You know, it's almost like I think like Usman become quite like that, where like even Colby didn't want to engage much with the wrestling, so they just had a straight up stand up fight, and
Mm-hmm.
like that's the last thing everyone expected.
Right.
So like that, yeah, I think there's a good point in that. I think it's going to be a good fight, me. I really
Mm-hmm.
do.
Yeah, same. I think it's going to be a fun fight. And I think that the lead up and like the post fight press conference, the pre fight press, like it's all
Yeah.
kind of like must see. We've been talking a lot of trash about the Sphere. You've been talking a lot of trash about the Sphere, but I think it will be a good fight. Um,
No, yeah. My problem with the Sphere is, and I'll give MMA Guru credit because I saw him saying this, is
mhm.
my worry is like are we just going to be watching fights from a real like bird's eye view perspective so we can see Sphere as well? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So are we going to miss out on like a lot of close details, especially in the Marab Sean O'Malley fight? Because something might happen if it's from a wide angle that we just
yeah,
wouldn't see. You know what I
and
mean?
that's one of the things that's like, how is the camera situation going to be? Because if their cameras are in front, they're going to be blocking the people who are up in the seat. Like, how's that going to work out?
Yeah,
So is it only going to be cameras from the back and the sides? Like, I mean,
God
I'm sure
knows.
they've thought about all that and they're trying to figure it out.
Yeah,
But like,
he said he's got an Oscar-winning camera guy on it, a guy
yeah,
who's won an Oscar for his camera work before. So, you know, I'm pretty sure that guy's going to have it figured out. I do like the quote that Dana White said about, he said that no one will ever be able to do this again in the Sphere purely because of how much money is spent on it. And I'm
yeah,
like, that doesn't make much sense though, because it's like, yeah, oh, if you spent a load of money and the Sphere is always going to look awesome no matter what you're doing there. Like, bloody, I think U2 played there and made it look really good. U2 are bloody rubbish. So, you know what I mean? If they can do it,
yeah.
then UFC definitely can, you know.
Well, I think it goes back to what we were talking about last week. Whenever you were saying like the new stadium that they sold out, the highest gate ever, and it
Yeah.
was like the second event. They're gonna do the same thing for the Sphere. You know, no
Oh,
one's
of
ever gonna
course.
do it like this because we're the first. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
well, no shit.
I know, yeah. And
Like,
there's rumors as well that Turkey Al Sheikh, the Saudi Arabian guy, apparently he's bought a lot of these tickets and give them out as complimentary tickets. So a
to
lot
his
of the
people.
sales. Yeah, I don't know if this is true. I think this is just all internet rumor stuff. But I can see that being true because you can literally see they've been struggling to sell the actual physical tickets.
I mean, they're
So
giving them away, man. I told you should apply.
I
Try
know,
to
yeah, I
try to
know.
get the free tickets, man.
What state is it in? Is it
Uh,
Vegas?
yeah, Nevada, the
Ah,
state
yeah.
of
I've
us.
never been anywhere but New York. So I'd love to do it, but sat out, long flight and everything.
Yeah, be a little tired by the time we get there, but
Yeah. But also as well, I didn't write this in the notes, and this is kind of just come to me now. But I actually, and again, I think I saw an MMA YouTuber talk about this. So whoever you are, credit to you. Might be MMA Guru, might be MMA Joey, or MMA someone that I saw basically say it. So he was like, "Is the UFC becoming a rich man's sport with the latest events?" Because even in the UK, they come to the UK recently, and they did it at like the main event, the Leon Bilal fight, was like 6 in the morning.
yeah,
No working class man's doing that, like going to that. So that must have been filled with the middle and upper class, like majority.
upper class for sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I saw, and I don't remember where I saw it. It was one of the MMA outlets. Dana White was talking about how much piracy there is with the
Mhm.
UFC streams and stuff. And it's like, oh, well, the way we stop that is by arresting the people who are doing the illegal streaming. But like, logically, the way you stop that is by not charging $80
Yeah.
for a pay per view.
Well,
Like,
again,
that's insane.
yeah, this segues perfectly right. The reason he was asked this question is because Turkey Al Sheikh says he wants to bring boxing pay-per-views down to $20. Like, I don't know how much they are in the States. Like, round here, they're around 25,
$60.
£30. Yeah, so that translates pretty much, right? So
Yeah,
for us, it'll be around £10, if he does do that price. And I do think that will help combat piracy because if it's just £10, I'd
yeah,
happily pay that, you know what I
yeah.
mean?
You can do that, Tim. But then you don't have to worry about finding
Yeah.
whatever site that you need, or worry about it buffering or having to refresh, or anything that supposedly might happen if one were to
Yeah.
pirate, which none of us here actually do. So,
No, I've never done stuff like that. I'm a law-abiding citizen by every means, but
but hypothetically, you wouldn't have to worry about that because I mean, $20, like $20 every few weeks, like that's not a whole lot.
no,
80, like, dude, now we're talking some change, especially
yeah,
for people like us, lower middle class people. Like, yeah, that's a lot of money, man. That's
mate,
that's
I'll have to work like around 7 hours for that. You know what I mean? So like, I think I'm on about £12 an hour in my job, and
wow.
that's like above minimum wage. Like not much above minimum wage, but it's still above minimum wage. So I'd have to work about 7 hours to do
Right.
that.
To
Six,
watch
7 hours.
one fight, and then they put on 3, 4 a month.
Mm.
Like, and it, whoever, shout out to whoever that was that said that. But yeah, the UFC is turning into like pay to play. You know, you got to
It
have the
is.
money to do it. Unless you
Yeah,
want to watch
it really
these
is.
absolutely atrocious cards in the training facility, basically. You know, in
Yeah.
the Apex Center. Like, if you want to watch those, you know, they're pretty much free. But if you want to watch the good stuff,
Yeah, if you want to watch the stuff that's going to have the big production, the big stars, the press conference before and after, like if you want all the glitz and glam, basically you're going to have to sell one or something, like if you work in glass, which it's so strange to me because UFC always felt like really ingrained with the working people, like,
Mhm.
even over here in England, you speak to people, it's mostly people on council estates that are watching UFC. Like now it's because it's become popular that the upper classes are getting involved,
Yeah,
but they're not your diehard fans that are like me and you where we talk about it every day and stuff like that.
yeah, it's
Excuse me.
no, yeah. It's weird how it's evolved because it was nothing. You know, it was like when it first started, the UFC, obviously they were struggling, but they were small, and like the people who were really passionate were like word of mouth, like, hey, have you heard of the UFC? Like, this stuff is pretty cool, you know. And it was just like people getting together and then talking about it, and then it just kind of has grown to this crazy
Yeah.
level of like, like you said, $80 for one event, like for 4 hours of
That's
your
it.
life.
Like they
So
should
we're
call themselves the UFC bloody, like, oh, I forgot the word as I was about to pop it off. Like the UFC Country Club, because that's kind of what it is now. It's like a little country club for Dana White and his buddies and his YouTuber friends, and it's
yeah,
like
everybody
slap
who's front
fighting.
and
If
center.
you look at the crowd in slap fighting, it's all social influencers. It's all people that have been invited to go and watch,
Yep,
to
everybody
go and get
around. Mhm.
publicity. Yeah, and that's what UFC is getting like, and it shouldn't because UFC is an actual sport. And I know he wants to claim slap fighting is, he claims it gets more numbers than soccer, and it gets like he makes up all these stupid claims about slap fighting, but like that would never be a sport. That would never be respected as a sport. Whereas UFC, like we all saw it early on, and we're all like, yeah, like I can see the value in mixing martial arts and seeing
Mhm.
like
So
basically it started
who's the
out with
best?
would a boxer beat a wrestler? Would a jiu-jitsu guy beat a kickboxer? Like we all wanted to see that. We all wanted to know the answer to that. And now we've mixed the martial arts, and now we've got people that, like we were saying about Sean O'Malley, people think he's a striker, but he can actually go to a BJJ tournament and do well. So, he is literally a mixed martial artist.
Yep, and that's it's weird to me that if it's correlation, it doesn't mean it's the same. But as the style has been more mixed, and you see more people like being more well rounded, then like that's the evolution of the sport has gone to that rich man's game. Because I think to get that training, to get that level of
Yeah,
training, you have to fork out a lot of money. So you have to bring in a lot of money. So that's why they need all these rich people to fill these seats. Does that make sense?
yeah. Yeah, it does. And also as well, this kind of to go back to the spare situation. Like Dana White was saying, no other sport will be able to do what we're doing. And I know exactly why that is. Is because you're not paying Anthony Joshua kind of money to your athletes. You're not paying Canelo money to your athletes. You're not
No.
paying like I can name so many boxers that have made more in one fight than the top UFC guys of the whole career, like John Jones. Like John
Mhm.
Jones would wish he could make Anthony Joshua money off one fight. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, that's what Ngannou said. You know, he made more off of that Anthony Joshua fight and then the Tyson Fury fight than he made in his entire UFC career. Like, that's
Yeah.
insane amount of
To
money
think
when
as
you think
well, he
about
was
it.
the heavyweight champ. You know what I mean? And to make
I mean,
more
yeah,
on your debut fight in another sport than your whole career combined, it's just like we probably will speak about UFC pay almost every week because it needs to be spoken about. Like these guys sacrifice so much, and they're getting paid not far off what you could get at just a normal job. If you go for promotions and stuff. So it's pretty crazy to me. Like we were speaking about, is it Martino? His name? I call him Marino. The guy that fought O'Malley.
Latino,
Like
yeah.
Yeah, Massino. I would like to know how much he got paid for that because I bet you it wasn't much in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, he came in on short notice, fought an up and coming fighter, and he went, but he went 3 rounds, but it was stop blade, or he went all the. I
Yeah.
can't remember exactly how it was, but I mean, like, how much do you get paid for that? And that's
Mm.
one of the things, that I would like. I don't want to get into the guy's personal finances, but like,
Yeah, of
he's
course.
4-0 on the regional scene. So how does that stack up to what he got paid in the UFC? Like
Mm.
he's like,
Yeah.
it
I'd
can't be
also like to know as
significantly far
well.
off.
That's it, yeah. And I'd also like to know, like, now that he's back on the regional scene, do you get win bonuses or would you get paid the same no matter what? You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So win, lose, or draw, you're getting paid what you've been offered, kind of thing. Because I find that win bonus just atrocious, man.
I mean, it's something to fight for, but like, you're going out there and
See,
you're putting your body on the line. You should get compensated for your time and
yeah.
your effort. And if the boss wants to give a bonus for fight of the night, then that's great. But like, yeah, I mean, I
Well,
get it.
my
But at
opinion
the
is,
same
right.
at the same time, you signed the contract, so like,
No, yeah, I
I don't
get
feel
that.
bad
But
for them per se.
I don't feel bad, but they have no other choice. Like, if they want to fight for the premier fighting company, in mixed martial arts, that's what you have to accept. You don't have no other option. So we can sit here and go, yeah, you signed the contract, but they have no choice. Like,
Well, they got a
unless they
choice.
want to
They're
go to
PFL.
PFL, yeah, but like I talk about Dakota a lot. That's because she's local to me. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And like, so, but yeah, they do get paid a lot and they get good competition money if they win the whole competition. But like, it's not as like established. It's not as like no one is thinking, I want to see what the PFL middleweight looks like against the UFC middleweight. Everyone would rather see the number one contender in UFC against the middleweight champ. You know what I mean?
Mm. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess that's one of the things that has struck me with the PFL is like, it is a really big organization that is, backed by ESPN money, which is Disney money, which is a lot of money.
Yeah.
So that organization is huge, but it hasn't reached the levels of even like a Bellator when Bellator was big.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, they've bought
where,
Bellator now, haven't they?
yeah, but like,
Yeah.
remember when Bellator was big? Like, they had like Fedor and Emelianenko, and then people were talking about it, like, oh, what would happen if
Mm.
Fedor fought, you know, whoever the champion was at the time? There was a lot of talk about that, but now it's just like, the UFC is so big, the UFC is such a monolith
It
that
just
like,
squashes it, doesn't it? Yeah.
eh, and like, but the PFL has Francis freaking Ngannou. You know what I mean? Like,
I know, yeah. And it has Jake Paul, like it is getting some people that like put that will put numbers behind it. But I just don't think it will ever be as prestigious. Like I think UFC now has just become like that one. You know what I mean? Where
that
it's almost like in boxing with the WBC belt. Like that's the prestigious one. You know what I mean? And
then you
like
have all the little minor
yeah,
WBA, WBO belts, stuff like that. The
yeah. I might have
IBO.
got the wrong belt there,
Yeah,
but you know what I'm saying.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, is that the way MMA is going to be? Where like all these different promotions, all these different commissions have these
So
different
it already is.
belts,
Yeah.
right? But if you say, yeah, I mean, I guess it is. But at least those people
Because
can fight
like
each other. At least they
yeah,
box
yeah.
each other.
That's
Like
what
the
I'm saying.
IBF
Like
champion
boxing's
boxes the
actually
WBO champion. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like,
That's what I
there's
mean.
no
Like boxing.
crossover.
They can actually do what they want, like which has been to its detriment at times because they want
Mm.
to protect the owners and all that stuff. But it
Yeah.
goes to show you offer a fighter enough incentive, he'll fight anyone. And I think it goes for boxing and UFC. And like that's what does annoy me with the MMA versus boxing kind of thing is, oh, the best fight the best in UFC, but in boxing they don't. I like as we said a few videos. I
Mhm.
actually think that's reversed. I think now you got Tank Davis actually looking for top fighters to fight now because he wants that Saudi money. He would have never done that with before the money.
Yeah, no,
So
I think the UFC used to be like that though. Like that's how the
it
UFC used
is.
to be, and
Yeah,
and you had these dream matchups, and but now it's just I think it's weird, right? Because in boxing you have these commissions that are like, if you beat this person, you must defend against this person.
Yeah.
right? Whereas in MMA, it's like, we think you should probably fight this guy. Like, no offense to
Yeah.
Khalil Roundtree, but like he just come off of steroid suspension, and now he's fighting for the belt. Like,
Yeah.
isn't that weird?
And he admitted to it himself, which I give him credit for. He admitted to it, and that's why he got found out, which I do give him credit for. But he's only served a thingy ban. Like, the ban was basically, he's already served the ban. He got given the ban like last week, and he's already served it because
time
he
served
spent
for
time
4
out the
months
ring.
or whatever. Yeah.
So it's like he's still going in there with them advantages, whether he wanted to or not.
Yeah,
And
it's just so weird.
it's just a strange one, that one. Like, I don't even know. I like Roundtree. Like, I think he's a good fighter. I'm not saying he's a bad fighter, but I don't know if he does deserve that though. Like, especially over Ankalaev and you know.
Exactly. And then you, like we talked about last week, we were talking about the same thing. Like Cheeto Vera came into a title fight off of a loss. Like, dude, what is going on? The best aren't fighting the best.
Israel Adesanya just fought the champion, and his last fight he lost against Sean O'Malley, where he lost his belt. You know, I love Izzy, but I could see that as a fan. I was like, does he deserve this? Maybe he needs to get another win before he's fighting for the belt.
Fight Sean, who wants to fight Dricus. They both want, like, there were other options, and it's just like whoever their cash cow money person is, that's who they're pushing. Which
and imagine. Just imagine Anthony Joshua, his next fight was against someone coming off a loss. Just imagine that. Like, people will be going crazy. Like, people are almost saying it about Dubois. People are saying it about Dubois. They're like, oh yeah, like he won his last fight, but previously he quit to a jab off Usyk. Why does he deserve it? But he beat Hrgovic, who was the #1 contender, so he's kind of earned it with that. But like, I see the standard.
You have that fight in between
the two sports. Yeah.
Like, and I think it's just money. I mean, I think with boxing we saw the money corrupted, like that. It got to the point where there was so much money, so much influence with like the Don Kings and stuff. They were just throwing trash cans at their champions and saying, "Beat this person up for money." Right?
Yeah.
Is that happening with the UFC? I mean, like, is that happening with MMA? Like, here, we know we're pretty confident we're going to win. Beat up this trash can.
Yeah, they're very good at telling the story as well. So it's like, currently now, you ask Dana White, why is John Jones the pound for pound? Oh, because he beat the #1 heavyweight. He didn't. He didn't beat Ngannou. Didn't beat Stipe. He beat Cyril Gane, who got beaten by Ngannou. But he's only the #1 heavyweight because the #1 heavyweight left and the other #1 heavyweight retired in Stipe. So it's very manipulated at the moment.
It is, and that's one of the things I hate about that Jones-Stipe fight. Like, just give it up, dude. Like, why are we still pushing for that? Like, it's what, 2 years? I don't. Stipe hasn't fought in years.
Yeah, I love Stipe. I thought he was going to beat Ngannou the second time as well. Like, it's one of my. I thought for a heavyweight, he was real good at striking and stuff, and mixing his game up, which is quite rare in the heavyweight division. And so I kind of wanted him to beat Ngannou. So I always saw Ngannou as like a slow, like, kind of guy.
Lucky
so
puncher,
I always thought skill-wise, Stipe, I want him to win. But now he's been out the ring for so long. He's been training as a firefighter, not as a fighter. You know what I mean? Like, Job's been firefighting, so it's just a strange one. Like, I want Stipe to make money, and I'd love Stipe to beat Jones. Like, that's the only reason why I'd want to watch it. Is can Stipe knock out John Jones? You know, and Stipe kind of deserves that. Like, no blemishes in his career, did it all the right way. And then if he beats John Jones, then guess what? Stipe has to be called the greatest of all time, according to Dana White's rules. So that's another strange one.
Yeah, I just looked it up while we were talking. Stipe hasn't fought since March of 2021. It's September of 2024. That's over 3 years.
Yeah. And like, contrast that with how many like first Blazers fought, how many Aspinalls fought in that time. It's crazy.
If Jones beats him, like, what does that prove? You can beat a guy who's been retired for 3 years?
Yeah.
And if Stipe beats John, how detrimental is that to John's career?
Exactly. And like, of course, John.
It's a no-win situation.
Yeah, like it literally is. It's like Jake Paul fighting Mike Tyson. Oh yeah, well done. You beat a 60-year-old. Oh man, I can't believe you got beat by a 60-year-old. Like that's literally the same thing. Like
Yeah,
it's so strange. Like
it
part of
is.
me wishes that John Jones will either retire with the belt, so then the belt can get moved on, and he can say, I'm the GOAT because I moved up division, I won both belts and all this. Like I can, that's still a good argument to make. Like whether it's Cyril Gane or not, it's still a good argument to make. Like the
I
Alex
think
Pereira argument, you know,
the better argument though is he fights Tom. He
yeah,
solidifies the belts and then he retires.
yeah, you're the GOAT,
Like,
right?
you
Beat
beat the
beat the
interim
young
champ.
guy, yeah.
You beat one interim champ, beat the other.
That's it. That's why I totally agree. Like, if you beat two younger guys like Cyril Gane and then Tom Aspinall, even if it's not Tom, if it's like anyone else that's like on a decent streak in the heavyweight division, who just isn't 44 and not fought for 3 years, like that would look way better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like beating Stipe, it's just like he's already beat a guy that's beat Stipe, so there's so many weird variables to it.
I just think that it's a no-win situation. And the only way I think that it can be a win situation is if they say, okay, Steve is retired, he's not going to fight, it's going to be Tom, and that's how
Yeah,
you win that situation. Because as
yeah.
much as John has been talking about Tom, and as much as Tom has been calling for this fight, like it's you've already built the hype. The hype is there. Like just follow
That's
through
it.
on it. Just do it. Like
There
it's
isn't a
crazy.
UFC fan or an MMA fan that I know that doesn't want to see how Aspinall looks against John Jones or how John Jones looks against Aspinall. Like that's the intriguing one because there's actual risk to that one. Like there's actual like people can see, oh, Tom's so quick for a heavyweight. Can Jones deal with that? Because he struggled with the quicker light heavyweights. So it's and John Jones is so good at putting strikes together, so and good at like kicking knees, which we know
Yeah,
Aspinall has knee problems.
yeah.
So
He's good
how
at
does
keeping the
Aspinall
distance,
deal with
hand
that?
fighting.
Yeah. So
So
I can actually like that one seemed more 50-50 than any other fight, you know what I mean?
yeah, I mean, if you only want to fight once, John, fight Tom, and then you
Yeah.
can retire. Like, I mean, if he's looking for that inbuilt excuse, he could always say, "Well, I didn't fight for 2 years. I'm coming off an injury."
Hmm.
He has the built-in excuse, like he wanted with the drugs and all that stuff. So you already have that. We're giving you that excuse. But then if you win, you are the goat. Period.
That's
Like,
it. Period. Like even I can't argue it. I don't like John Jones, but that's the thing. Like I don't like John Jones. If he got beat by Aspinall, I wouldn't be like, you're shit, because it's Aspinall that's beat you. It's not like he's a bad fighter. You know what I
right.
mean? And people get older. John Jones isn't exactly young. He's been out the ring for a while himself, so I can totally understand why Aspinall might beat him, and that's part of what I think is why they're avoiding it because Dana White can see it clear as day, John Jones can see it clear as day, and they just don't want us to see it. But we can see it too. Like we're not stupid.
Yeah, but I think it's the only logical thing, and I think one way or the other by the end of the year, I think we will get there because I just don't think
I hope so.
Stipe is going to fight. Like in my
Yeah.
opinion, it's been 3.5 years. I haven't heard a word from him. Have you heard
No.
anything about Stipe Miocic? A word.
Yeah, I did hear him say. Well, I don't know what he was saying. Like, no offense, Steve. I love you, but I do love doing impressions of you in the ring after you. Because have you ever noticed that whenever he wins a fight, he's just like you just can't understand what he's saying. Oh,
Yeah,
I can't anyway.
he's. I mean, well, I think it's accent, but he's very winded and just kind of excited.
Yeah,
And, yeah, he does have that kind of like
and it's
everything
just
kind of
like
it's almost a rubber.
world champion John Jones. Like every time, it just reminds me of like a South Park skit. Like I find myself imitating him.
That's funny. But I'm
But
glad we talked about that because that's something that kind of came up and it's really big in the MMA world right now. Is like who is the GOAT, right? John
mm,
Jones, like who's the GOAT? Jones has a
it's so
claim. Silva has
Yeah,
a
it's a
claim.
hard one, isn't it? GSP.
GSP has a claim. Khabib has a claim. Like, who is the
Yeah,
GOAT?
Michael Bisping. No, I'm only joking. Um, sorry, Mike. But you know, like I do agree with that, and like you can look at Khabib. Like Islam seems to be getting close to his record as well. So I don't know if Islam's getting onto that GOAT list. You can even put Conor there just for what he's done for the sport, like in terms of like the eyes he's brought to the sport. You know what
I
I
would say
mean?
for like the hype and stuff like that, sure, but
Yeah.
I get you. Yeah, I think the reason I bring that up is like because we did a top five list, right? We both did our top five fighters, and I was wondering whenever I saw yours, you were very boxing heavy. Like obviously
Yeah.
you like boxing a lot, and you kind of grew
Hmm.
up watching a lot of boxing. But like if you had to go MMA, your goat. I mean, yeah, it looks like Anderson Silva would be your goat. Is that correct?
No, because he took steroids. Like
But he was in
that
your
was my
all-time favorite
favorite
fight before
fighters.
that.
Yeah, yeah, favorite. It wasn't who's the best. Like Tony
Okay.
Ferguson was in my list. You know what I
Right.
mean? So, um, I can't decide who the GOAT is. Like it's so hard with MMA.
Mhm.
Like sometimes I'm like it's GSP, but then I'm like, does the GOAT get beat by Matt Serra? You know what I mean? Like it. I wouldn't argue anyone putting John Jones in it. Like, oh, Anderson Silva. I just have my own personal like issue
His
against them being
favorites.
in there. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're both
Um,
hot.
yeah, I can totally see like for skill wise, they're definitely the top two. Like there's not really an argument against that if you just look at pure skill alone and take
Mm.
out like the extracurricular stuff they might have done. Like um so I suppose if I'm excluding the popping list, it is Jones and Anderson. Like it's pretty hard to go against either of those two.
I think like for me, those two, and then GSP and Khabib, like Khabib
Yeah,
30-0, like that's hard to argue
I
against.
know. Yeah,
GSP has like the one of the longest welterweight reigns. Then he retired and came back after a few years and beat Bisping for the middleweight title and retired again.
yeah.
So like, is he the greatest of all time? I'm not a GSP fan. I've never been a GSP fan.
No, same.
But it's hard to argue. Like it's
No,
hard
yeah.
to argue.
Now he's retired, and you look back at what he's done. You're like, wow, that was special. Like, I
It's
wish I
amazing.
appreciated him at the time. Um, yeah. I think it's hard. The four you said are the clear four. You know what I mean? Like you can muddle that up however you want, but I think that has to be your four. Like so for me, I'd go probably Khabib, GSP, Jones, Silva, just because they're at the bottom because of the tops. You know what I mean? Um, and to be honest, I just liked Khabib's style more than GSP's. Like, if I sometimes I think who would scare me the most in the ring, and Khabib would scare me the most in the ring.
I don't know, man. You look back and you see the prime GSP, his physique. He's just like,
Yeah,
man, like
but
you're staring across from that, like, oh, I'm about to get my ass kicked.
and the fact with GSP, the fact that he wasn't a wrestler, he didn't grow up as a wrestler, and he become a world class wrestler.
Yeah, he trained with the
That,
Canadian Olympic team. Like that's
yeah.
like,
And he also trained with he's the boxing coach, Freddie Roach. He used to train with
mhm,
Freddie Roach as well. So GSP was like very unique
mhm.
where he would outsource people and go and learn skills, like which I don't really see much in MMA. Like they stick to their team, you know what I
Yeah,
mean, and train from the
yeah.
team that they're from. So
And I think
I like GSP for that reason as well. He's
yeah,
always willing to learn.
yeah. And as weird as he is, and then if you've ever seen any interviews with him, he believes in like aliens and like he's just a weird
Yeah,
kind of guy. But like
yeah.
he was one of the people who like wasn't naturally like how do I say it without trying to sound offensive? He wasn't like naturally athletic. He just worked
Hmm.
super hard. He wasn't naturally big, but he worked out like harder than anybody. Like he just it was hard work,
What Syde
determination.
is trying to say is he was Canadian. I'm only joking, Canada. But no, I do agree. Like GSP wasn't a guy you'd look at and think, oh, this guy's gonna rule a division and go up a division and beat a guy way bigger than him. Like, and then when you see his physique towards the end, you're like, wow, he's become that guy though. You know what I mean? So yeah,
hard work beats talent, man.
Mhm.
That's when you have a lot of world, like you said, being able to bring in coaches from world class trainers from all these different disciplines, like you're going to be amazing. And
Yeah.
it's looking back, it's hard to argue against GSP. I think.
It is now. You sold me on GSP. Like, because even I started thinking, oh yeah, he trained with Freddie Roach. He never wrestled, but then he becomes so good at it.
And then
Like,
he
yeah, you
lost
sold me
Matt
on GSP.
Sarah, but then he got that win back.
He
Matt
avenged it. Yeah.
Hughes, he got that like
Hmm. And
you
Matt
know.
Hughes, like, he's another one that doesn't get the respect nowadays that he deserves. I think. Like, obviously, he had a tragedy as well with the crash and stuff like that, but. I don't really hear people talk about Matt Hughes. I remember when I was young, he was a terrifying guy. Like the way he'd slam people, and
Yeah,
like I was introduced to him from Tough. Like this is how much of a casual I was. So I was introduced to him from his Tough seasons, and then I thought, oh, let me look this guy up. And then I thought, wow, this guy's an actual beast, and
he's a
he was quite
monster.
small as well.
When he slammed Carlos Newton and like knocked him out from a slam. I don't know if you
Was
remember.
that the one where they both were knocked out?
Yeah,
Yeah, that was a fun one.
yeah, where Carlos Newton had him in a triangle and he slammed him, and they both went out, but he kind of woke up first, and
And then was like, yeah. That was a fun one. But yeah, like this has been a nice little tangent to be honest, because
yeah,
it's given us the opportunity to talk about GSP, and then we've gone off to Matt Hughes, who, we were talking GOAT lists, and some people, there might be some old school UFC fans that have Matt Hughes up there. Like I can understand why you might want him on your GOAT list, like given how good he was at the time, for
yeah.
the
I mean,
time as
he's
well.
especially because he was around like in the earlier days of UFC before it became like this multi-billion-dollar business. He was
Yeah,
like that hardworking everyday guy, So, um, shout out to Matt Hughes, man. You were awesome.
yeah. Yeah, that's
You didn't
it.
get enough
Like shout out
appreciation.
to Matt Hughes. Like, what's funny? I've seen a lot of slander against him over the years because apparently he was a bit of a, I don't know how to put it, but kind of like a bit of a social man. Like the way we talk about people and talk to people and use people. But I don't want to go too into it.
I
But
mean,
it's nice
that's
that people are
we've talked
talking
about
about him
that before.
positively now.
We've
Go
talked
on,
about
sorry.
so we've talked about this before. To be a champion and to be like the best, you kind
Yeah,
of have to be that way. And so I
yeah.
won't, as long as you're not like a super dickhead, then I'm not gonna hold it against you.
Yeah, that's it. That, like, you know what? That's one of the things that made me really dislike Colby Covington for a while was when he was talking about Matt Hughes and running over him like a train. I just thought, I get it. You're trying to promote yourself, but that was just low. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons to dislike Colby Covington.
Yeah. It's like with Leon's dad, where he's like, I'll take you to the seventh, where he messed the line up, which always makes me laugh. I'll take you to the seventh layer of hair. I mean, hell, and we'll speak to your dad there. It's like,
Yeah,
come on, Cody, at least rehearse your lines.
trying too hard. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's like
But
when he did it with us, I think Usman's coach died, and he was like, mentioned that as well. It's like, I think Colby's a necrophiliac, to be honest.
yeah, he's a weird guy, man.
Yeah. I think he
But
fantasizes about dead people.
one of the things that's really funny about Kobe is like how much of a Trump guy he is, right? Like
Yeah.
how he always talks about Trump and whatnot, but he's not even Trump's favorite fighter.
No, that's what makes me laugh as well. Like he promotes Trump more than any fighter ever. And then
Mm-hmm.
whenever Trump is asked about UFC, he never mentions Kobe, which I always find that hilarious. I
It's
know
great.
Trump hates. Yeah,
Yeah, that's so yeah. That's it's one of my favorite things. But speaking of fighters, I don't or that I don't have respect or don't get the respect that they deserve. Um, I have a list here, and I wanted you to kind of look at this.
hmm.
The most overrated fighters of all time, according to Tapology. How do you feel about this list?
You know what? Right, I looked through it, and do you know what my first thought was? If the Diaz brothers aren't on it, then I don't really believe in it. Because I've always said the Diaz brothers are the most overrated fighters. Like,
Well,
not maybe not the most, because Nick I thought was good for his time, but especially Nate, so overrated. Like,
yeah,
what he beat a small Conor McGregor once. Like now he's this GOAT. You know what I mean? and I just feel
Well,
their fans' IQ level is just so low.
they're both on the list.
Yeah, I know that's the first thing I look for. I'm trying to get the list up on my phone so I can see it closer. I know you sent it me.
Yeah. So at number one, you have Chael Sonnen, the most overrated fighter of all time. They say.
I don't think that. I don't think he's number one overrated fighter. Like he took Anderson Silva almost to the distance and like almost beat him. So you can't say that's an overrated guy. Like
Yeah,
John
and
Jones didn't want to fight him on short notice. Like that's not an overrated guy. You know what I mean?
the thing about Chael Sonnen is before, like, if you look before all the crazy stuff happened with like from the first Anderson Silva fight to previous to that, Chael Sonnen was a killer. Remember, he beat
He was.
Michael Bisping.
Yeah.
He was right there in, what was it, the WEC. He was like fighting for the belt in the WEC. I think he got robbed of the decision. He beat the champ, but the champ missed weight, so he couldn't win the belt. Like, Chael Sonnen was an absolute monster. So I
Yeah,
think
and he admits himself. Sorry, I thought. Go on. You're not finished.
I'm sorry, I'm going on a little bit of a tangent about Chael Sonnen, but he, I think that this list is kind of biased towards the end of his career when he got older, and then after he popped, he obviously popped for steroids and he was out, and then he came back and tried to fight again, and it wasn't the best, but like Chael Sonnen's
I always loved
prime was legit.
I like obviously Chael was the best talker in UFC. Like I think he's better than Conor, like in terms of just putting a sentence together and making you laugh. And I always loved that where when he got popped, he said, "Of course I have more testosterone than the average man. Have you seen me?" And I thought that's the best answer you can give. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Chael, he's a world-class troll, but he's also an amazing fighter. So
yeah,
I think that this list is in my opinion, it's starting off wrong.
Yeah, I agree. Like again, I think the same with Rousey at second. Though I think it's hard to say she's overrated. What? Because she's got beat by the GOAT and Holly Holmes. Like
she got beat by Holly Holm, who was a way better striker than her, and she got beat
world-class
by
boxer. Yeah, and Holly Holmes is one of the GOAT female boxers in boxing.
Yes,
so she got beat by arguably two GOATs of sports. So I'm not a big fan of Ronda. I thought she was a bit of a diva or whatever, however you want to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
But to call her overrated is silly, man. I think
and I mean, I will say that she was overhyped because she was fighting people who weren't necessarily the greatest, but she was demolishing people who weren't necessarily the greatest. It'd be one thing if she took everybody to the distance, but how many people did she tap? Like, how many people?
And even when she started like putting a striking together a bit, like because the threat of the takedown and all that, it allowed her to strike a bit with the girls that weren't as proficient on the feet. So I think to call her overrated is just silly, man. Like she is the like she started all this for the females, in my opinion. So to call her overrated is just silly.
Yeah, I think again it's recency bias. She had the 2 losses and she kind of the diva aspect and then crying and stuff like that. But like if you look at her,
I think Joe Rogan's not helped. Like
saying that she could beat the
Mayweather at boxing, beat half the men in her division. Like that just really didn't help.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely silly to say, but to say that she's overrated, like you're discounting how much effect she had on the women's division. There wouldn't be women's MMA and UFC without Ronda Rousey.
Mm-hmm. It's like saying Anderson Silva's overrated because he ended up losing like towards the end of his career. Yeah, it's a bit silly, that one.
It is, and I think that's recency bias. And then when you go and you look back as a fan, and you look back and you see, oh shoot, these guys were actually really good. They just fought past their prime. So was Ronda Rousey the second most overrated fighter of all time? I'm going to say probably not. But was she somebody who was thrust into the spotlight and showed her weaknesses against world-class talent? Yeah, of course.
Of course, yeah. It's like, I reckon probably that we've covered Ronda now, haven't we? For some reason, my typology is just crashing on my phone, so I actually can't get the list up.
Yeah, no worries. Next is Uriah Hall.
again, I don't see how he's overrated.
See, and I don't think he was ever. So one of the weird things about Uriah Hall is like, yeah, he had that great knockout on Tough, and he came out and he did some okay things, but then he was just kind of up and down the rest of his career.
You know what? I've just mixed up Uriah Hall with what's the California kid's name?
Uriah Faber.
Yeah, I just mixed him up with Uriah Faber, but I don't think Uriah Hall's like the third most overrated fighter either. Like again, what? Because he knocked out a guy in spectacular fashion. You can't expect him to do that every fight, you know?
Right. And like he won the Ultimate Fighter, but like he never won a title. He was never thrust into like top contendership. Like he fought Anderson Silva when Anderson was like 40 something years old. But like yeah, well, like how is he one of the most overrated fighters of all time? I don't understand that.
I think it's a lot of this list seems to be based on their personality rather than like they're fighting. You know what I mean? So because I know Uriah Hall like annoyed people quite a lot with stuff he would say because he was quite against the UFC sometimes, and I think like that would get people up against him. You know, so yeah, like again, he wasn't. I'm not trying to say he was a world beater and you know world class like champion or anything like that, but I think he's rated just perfectly how he is.
He was an average MMA fighter. Like he was a decent fighter. I mean, look, he lost to Paulo Costa in 2018. He beat somebody named Bevan Lewis, Carlos Jr. He beat Anderson Silva, and then he beat Chris Weidman when he broke his leg.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
And then he lost to Sean Strickland, and then he lost another fight in 2022 to Andre Muniz. Like,
so one of his last losses was against the guy that became a champion not long after.
Yeah, right? And then he went into boxing and did some boxing, and you know he's not great, but like nobody ever said he was. Like he's the only one.
You know what? I think he fought Chavez Jr., didn't he? In boxing.
I think he did because he fought because Anderson Silva fought him before. So
yeah, and like I said the same about Silva as well before the Jake Paul fight. I thought Silva's got a real good chance because he's actually fought a proper boxer for 12 rounds. And I think it's similar with Uriah Hall, if that's called in Faber then. Like, Chavez Jr. doesn't take boxing serious all the time. Like, if you're a boxing fan, you kind of know that. But he's still he's still a boxer and he's a bloody Chavez, you know, so.
Right, like he has that ingrained in him, so. Yeah. I don't know. Overrated is silly. Like, he's an average MMA fighter. That's kind of what he ended up being. So I don't think he was overrated at all.
Yeah, maybe his highlight reel makes people like talk about him like he's a great or something because he has got a great highlight reel. Mm-hmm. But I don't really see anyone talk about him like he's awesome. So who's overrating him?
Yeah, like if he's overrated, that's because you put him that high on your own list at one point, and then you know.
Yeah. Bigfoot, is that Bigfoot Silva next?
No, next you have Sage Northcutt, which
that's fair.
Yeah, he's overrated. Like he was a young prospect, had a lot of hype behind him. Like, I mean, he took some time off from injury and stuff like that. He came back and he won just last year, so maybe he'll he's probably only in his mid-20s. Maybe he'll live out and he'll become a good fighter.
I've just started laughing at myself for mistaking Sage Northcutt for Bigfoot Silva. Like, them two couldn't look any different. I just saw the abbreviation, the nickname, so I thought, that's got to be Bigfoot.
Oh man! But then after that, you have Kimbo Slice.
I think that's fair. I think them two could be the top two. Like, he was like really overrated in street fighting days. Like, people thought he could just walk into the UFC and do it. So I understand why he's up there.
Yeah. And after him, you have Philippe Nover, who I never thought he was going to be like a fantastic fighter. I do remember he.
I don't remember him.
He got beat up by Renan Barão at one point.
Okay.
But I don't remember him being like anybody thinking he was going to be a champion. So I can't say he was.
Yeah, that's it.
It's weird. Number 7, I do agree with Eric Silva. This guy, I remember people were talking about how great Eric Silva was like I don't know if it was WEC or like early UFC, talking about
Yeah.
Eric Silva, and then like his career hasn't panned out the way they thought it was going
Was
to.
he related to Bigfoot?
I don't know. I know he's
No.
got some famous relatives named Silva, and then like he is like related to some Brazilian something. I don't want
Yeah.
to misquote myself, but he does have some connections. But I remember hype around Eric Silva, and I remember him just not looking that good all the time. So
Yeah, I actually don't remember him again. That's another one I don't have much of a recollection of. So maybe like the UK really didn't get behind it. Like, but to be honest, I do watch MMA through USA Media, so maybe I just wasn't into it at the time.
yeah,
Because I did have periods where I was on and off.
sure. But he was one of those guys who just had an up and down career, and he put a few fights together. I remember at one point they were talking about putting him in a title, and then he lost. It's like it's just up and down. So I do believe he was
So
overrated just
would you
based on
compare
career.
him? So for nowadays, would you compare him to like a Dan Hooker kind of fight guy?
I would
Because now
compare him to
people
like
want Dan
a
Hooker
Neil
to fight for
Magny,
the title. Ah, so yeah.
like a up and down. Like you would get close and then lose, or like you'd have that hype of like, oh, he can fight. He's finally learning this new skill, and then like, yeah,
And then it just fizzle out. Yeah. See, I've got a feeling some of these on this list I'm going to be like, oh, I don't remember them. So then I'm like, how are they overrated if I can't even
right.
remember
Like
them because
who
no
rated him
who's
that high in the
talking
first
about them
place?
still? Yeah.
Yeah. Then next you have your guy Bigfoot Silva.
Yeah, I think that's a bit unfair. Like,
I
I knew
disagree.
he was high up on the list. Um, because did he beat Fedor?
I think so, but he
Yeah.
was kind
So
of a
am
one
I?
trick
I could be
pony.
mixing him up with like Big Nog or someone.
But he was one of those guys who just all he could do was hit you one time, and he was really good at hitting you one time. But if he
Yeah.
didn't get that, he would lose. I mean, if you look at his record, loss, 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 loss. Like it's six
Mm.
fights in a row of losing. He was
Oh
definitely
yeah. Bigfoot's
overrated.
still boxing and stuff, isn't he? Like he's still actively boxing now, and he just looks like a brain dead old man.
Awful. He
Yeah.
looks like just swinging out there. He's awful. He was overrated. People thought he was going to be awesome because he can knock people out, but once it became obvious that he didn't have the talent, people started just kind of dodging those punches and,
Yeah.
and taking
That's
advantage of
it.
him.
I actually do remember him being talked about like quite a lot, so I do think he should be on that list. Because I think that's where this list is going wrong. Like, if I can't remember the fighter, he wasn't overrated because he wasn't spoken about enough for me to remember. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Do you remember Brandon Thatch?
No.
I
I mean,
do. I remember
I
him
do go off
from.
like what they look like a lot as well. So maybe I might do and just don't remember the name.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know he fought like Ben Henderson. I think he fought. Um, no, he didn't. Yeah, he fought Ben Henderson, lost to him. He got subbed, but like he was a guy who was up and coming, and like he'd only had lost one time when he fought for the title,
Yeah.
and he lost like 4 or 5 in a row after that. Like I remember Brandon Thatch, but I never thought he was like a world beater or anything. So I wouldn't say he was overrated. I would say he
Yeah.
was overhyped, if anything.
Yeah. That's what this list seems to be, isn't it? Like the most overhyped. Like, because similar to Paige Van Zandt, I don't remember people saying she's gonna be the best ever. Like I remember people saying, "Wow, she's pretty."
Yeah,
Like if she can mount a career, she could be the next Ronda Rousey because of how she looks, not because
yeah,
of how she fights.
and that's exactly right. It was all about how she looked, and she went over to bare knuckle and got beat up. And I never thought she was
Yeah.
going to be a world champion or anything like that. So overhyped,
She just fought
yes.
in Misfits as well, against
Against the
they had a battle of
YouTube
the OnlyFans against an OnlyFans lady, Elle
was
Brooks.
was.
Yeah.
Next, Ben Henderson. You remember Ben Henderson, right?
Yeah, I don't think he's overrated.
I don't
I
either. I
thought he
just
was
think
good, man.
he was really good. He was a
Yeah.
WEC champion, UFC champion. Like he was, or was he UFC champion? I think he lost to Pettis.
I think he might have. Oh yeah, he fought for the title at the very least.
Yeah. But
Like,
this
one
dude
thing
was
that always impressed me, he fought with a
crazy.
toothpick in his mouth. Like, that was crazy.
Absolute
Like,
madman. Like absolute
mm,
madman. Don't do that. If you're watching this and thinking about doing that, don't do that.
yeah. Like, it won't help with your breathing. It won't help you breathe out of your nose. Like, all that you're gonna do is maybe swallow a toothpick.
Yeah, so they're jamming into your mouth and whatever. Ugh,
Yeah.
just awful. But like, I think this is one of those things that's going off of recency, where like he's fought past his prime. He's lost quite a few in a row. But if you watch his fights with Anthony Pettis, you watch some of his fights. He was dominating. He was submitting people. He was winning championship fights. So I don't think Ben Henderson is the 10th most
Yeah.
overrated
And
fighter of all time. That's wild.
it is crazy. And I remember the Pettis. I don't know how many times we fought Pettis, but I remember watching one of them fights or the highlights to it. And it was a great fight. So it's not like he got dominated. You know what I mean?
No, that was super close. That was the Showtime kick.
Oh yeah, it was the
Off
Showtime kick. Yeah. No way. No way. So mate, he got beat by a spectacular move. Like there's
And that didn't
no
even end the
shame in
fight.
that.
That didn't end the fight.
Did it not?
No. They
Wow,
went the
that's mad.
distance.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, it
No.
was a war, wasn't it? Like if I
Yes.
remember right, like that was a war of a fight.
Yes, that was an amazing fight. So that's the top 10. That is the top 10, and I think we
Yeah.
agreed on maybe 2 of them.
Yeah. What I find intriguing in that is everyone's from the American continent. Like surely there's been some massive, like Paddy Pimblett, for example. Like surely there's been some massively overrated like European fighters. You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, that's weird. Yeah, it's all Brazil, U.S. I mean, I
Like
guess
people, I
you
thought
might
like this
all,
thing
but
might have showed up. You know, because like I know he become a champ, but I know a lot of like especially people in America didn't like this thing, so I thought he might have popped up. You know what I
number
mean?
20, sir.
All right, so he is there. Nah,
He
mind.
is,
You're not
but
overrated.
I disagree with this entirely because I think Michael Bisping is one of those guys that, like I was talking about before, he was always like top 5 in the
Yeah.
middleweight division. Like he was always just on the cusp of being one of the greats, and he was just on the cusp of the title shot. And then like
Yeah.
he would get
You know,
so high up and then lose. Like he lost to Chael Sonnen in the title
that's it.
eliminator,
Yeah.
and then he lost to Dan Henderson. Sorry,
Yeah.
to get into that. Like every time he'd get there, he'd lose, but then he would just like he was good, man. Like
Yeah,
that's
it was.
insane to say he's
Like
over.
he could have
That's
beat
insane.
Henderson and Chael on his day. You know what I mean? It's not like he was massively overskilled by him.
That Henderson or that Chael fight, I believe it was a split decision, if I'm not mistaken. I'm gonna pull it up here. He lost to Chael Sonnen, unanimous decision. But dude,
Yeah. So
that fight was amazing. I don't care. Like that fight was great.
no, it was. Yeah. And I expected the build-up to be absolutely insane, but they were so respectful. Like I found it so annoying. Like the one thing I remember was Bisping laughing at him because Chael had a belt, and Bisping was like, "I can buy them off eBay." And like I thought, no way is that the best trash talk that's come out of this. Like the two best trash talkers have barely engaged in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then afterwards they were so respectful, and then
Yeah.
like Chael Sonnen said like Michael Bisping hit him so hard. I just remember watching that interview. Chael looked like he got beat up, and he's like Michael Bisping hit me so hard. Like no respect to him.
Yeah.
Was,
You know, I've got a story. Yeah. So I worked at a health club called Hale Country Club. I was just a cleaner there, and it was sponsored by My Protein. Like owns this club, and then Mike Bisping become sponsored by this My Protein company. So he comes to the country club like literally just after he beat Silver. So I got to meet him, and I've gone up to him. I've gone, mate, you've just beaten my favorite ever fighter. Like you're a legend. Like, and I was honest. I said I didn't like you on stuff. You know, like I thought you was a bit of a dick on stuff. You know, total respect for you beating Silver. And then my colleague at the time, he was just a bit of a cheeky guy. He just kept asking him for photos. Like he kept saying, "Mike, can I have that photo yet? Mike, can I have that photo? Mike, can I have that photo?" It got to the point where Mike just looked at him and went, "Fuck off, you little..." Like I can't remember exactly what he said, but he just went, "Fuck off, you little prick, and leave me alone. I'm here working." And I just remember thinking, Like that, you talk to Mike with respect. You don't just ask him for things. You know what I mean?
Right. No, man, I just remember whenever I first started watching Mike Bisping, like his precision, his
Yeah,
cardio, his Muay Thai. Like I don't know if he was training Muay Thai or if like he just developed it
yeah,
over time. But like his Muay Thai kickboxing was like top notch.
yeah.
He had a great clinch. I just remember him throwing those short little uppercuts. The guy was good. Like,
He knew what he was doing, and he also learned how to combat wrestling as well, which coming from
yeah,
the UK is quite hard to do because you're not finding many wrestlers over here. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna guess he's come from Muay Thai because Muay Thai is very big in our region. Um, but if not, it will be kickboxing because ironically, I won a title in kickboxing. They changed the rules before a title fight and said, "Oh, it's not Muay Thai, it's kickboxing now." So there wasn't a massive difference like in Muay Thai and kickboxing in those days. So yeah, like that's one thing I always recognized, and I think that's why a lot of people ended up liking him because a lot of us were trained in a similar style to this thing. So a lot of us would think, whoa, actually, the stuff we're doing, we've always been told by the Americans it just would never work, but this thing's showing us it can. You know what I mean?
yeah. I think he was that cardio machine and just
Yeah,
technical, just very technical. Never was super powerful, but was very like picked his shots, technical in and out, and just outworked everybody. So
yeah.
I mean, we've been going on about this one for a little while. So Mike, you're welcome for the free publicity, but you are one of the best. I don't think you're overrated at all, and I think that's
No,
silly
I
that
agree.
somebody put you on a freaking list of overrated fighters. That's just wild.
It is wild. And I said in a few podcasts ago, like when you were praising this thing, I'm glad it's you that said it and not me, because I obviously will be biased with Mike. Um, but yeah, like he's not overrated. He's actually, you could put him in a top 20, a top 10 if you want. You know what I mean? Like it depends on what you like to watch and how you like to see it play out. Like
Mhm.
it's so strange that he's considered in a top 20 overrated list when he
Yeah.
won a title.
It's insane. He beat Luke Rockhold for the title, and then I don't know. It's silly. He came in on short notice, if you remember,
Mhm.
and won the title
Yeah,
on short notice.
yeah.
So that's
And he
got to
already
count.
got beat by Rockhold as well, you know.
Yes,
So, and then who did he lose the belt to?
GSP.
GSP. Like, wow, that's
And
terrible.
I was watching an interview. I don't know if you've seen this before, but I was watching an interview. GSP was talking about the Bisping fight, how he
Hmm.
felt he lost the first round, and he had to completely change his whole mentality to beat Bisping. Like
Yeah,
he's like, I can't do this. I'm gonna lose. I'm gonna lose the
yeah.
Bisping, and so he had to change his approach. So like, how much respect is that? GSP, we just
I know.
talked about
Yeah,
him being the
GSP, massive.
absolute goat. Had to basically rewire his brain mid-match to beat him.
Yeah,
Like,
like
you get
that's
respect.
big praise. Yeah, that's huge praise. Like, I
And,
always
and, and,
that
and
build up was great.
can I say he did it with one eye?
Yeah, yeah.
Let's
Like
not forget.
people, that's
Let's
it.
not
People don't
forget.
mention that a lot. Like you can see the big scar across my head. I used to fight a lot with this eye impended because it would get cut, and I wouldn't be blind like this thing, but I'd have blood in it sometimes. So I know how that feels. And mate, like when you can't see what's coming from your left side, which is usually people's dominant side, like it's a scary prospect. And I only had to cope with that for a couple of minutes in some fights. Like he had to cope with that for the whole fight. He had to adjust everything to that. And like, mate, if he had both eyes, what would he have been like? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, not only that, but like, if you'll remember that fight with Vitor,
Yeah,
Bisping was like, I will fight him. I know he's on steroids. I know that. Like, I still want to fight him. And I'm going to bring
yeah,
this up here if you can see this fight that absolutely, I mean, destroyed Mike. He made him
I
lose his
know.
eye against a guy who's clearly on steroids. He was in his mid to late 30s, looking more jacked than ever before. Like, that's wild. And he said, I
Yeah,
don't care. I know he's on steroids. I'm still going to beat him.
that's it. And
That's
like
insane.
he believed that, and that's what I loved about this thing was although I didn't always like him when he was fighting, because sometimes he'd say stuff and I'd be like, no need for that or whatever. His self belief though was just second to none. Like,
Second to none, absolutely top notch.
yeah,
Yeah. But yeah,
because like even like Chael, like I don't think he would have wanted to fight without that, you know, even playing field. Like people like that. Like even Anderson pops, you know what I mean? So yeah, like yeah, he don't get enough respect. This thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, definitely doesn't. And shout out to him for just being an all-time goat and doing it with one eye and lying to commissions to get licensed and like, that's just phenomenal stuff. And I can't say enough about it. Like that's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
I actually do think this thing probably has the best story in UFC. Like when you actually look back at it and what he went through and then how it ended, like he literally almost ended his career with the title. Like what a story, man. When
Yeah.
you look back, you know.
No, it's the story of a hard-working individual who finally achieved his dream after stumbling a little bit. And
Yeah.
he beat Anderson Silva. Let's not forget he beat Anderson Silva. He beat Dan Henderson. He avenged that loss.
Yeah.
He beat Rock Holt. He avenged that loss. So like, I mean, the guy was really good.
And that's it. Like I know Rocco is looked at as a bit of a joke, but I mean, look at his last fight against Paul Acosta. Like he was in that fight the whole time. Like Rocco wasn't this shit fighter that people make out he is now because of recency bias and all that. Like Rocco was one. People thought he was going to become one of the greats. You know.
Yeah. Look at him in Strikeforce. He was amazing. World class kickboxer. Like world class. Like just snap those kicks up at any time. He was a great kickboxer. And he's one of those people who people put on the overrated list, and I think it's just silly because Rockhold was really good too.
Yeah, he's one fighter that I used to love watching. Rockhold. Like, I was worried for Bisping in that fight. I'm not gonna lie. I thought, oh no, why are you taking this short notice? Like, I get it. You don't need to prove this. And he knew, obviously Bisping knew different, but I was really worried because I literally met Bisping. I think just before that, because as the story I was telling, he just beat Anderson when I met him. So I had a bit more like love for Bisping at the time because our interaction was actually quite good, you know. And I thought, oh, actually, Bisping's just a real guy. He's just like the rest of us, man. It's like he likes to chat shit, and but if you chat shit to him, he'll respect you, kind of thing, you know. Because I opened up my conversation with him, basically saying, oh, I thought he was a dick in tough, but he just beat Anderson Silva, so fair play. And it's like he took that as, yeah, you know what? Fair play to you for not treating me like, because everyone else was just up his ass. You know what I mean? I can't think of an American phrase.
That's what it is. They're all, I get it. Everybody's hyping him up and just wanted to be a part of his in crew, and you kind of were like, man, I thought you were an asshole.
yeah, like that. Do you know what? When I worked there, it was full of sports stars, millionaires, and all that, and that's how I used to speak to them all. Like, if I didn't like him, like I'd say, oh, on TV, I thought he was a bit of a dick, but now I've met you, like, fair play, you're all right. You know what I mean? So I used to get in trouble for that sometimes. Like, I had an argument with a Real Housewife of Cheshire in the reception once, because I won't go into it, but basically I've said along the lines of, like, they were preparing me. They were like, oh, the Real Housewives are in filming today because they'll film their show in there sometimes. And I went, I don't care. Everyone here is a fucking housewife of Cheshire. We're in Cheshire. Like, why am I going to treat them any different? And one of them overheard it, and she was like, you what? Because she was actually from Manchester, but married up to Cheshire. And literally we had an argument right in the front of reception. And her husband was a former football player who I'd speak to in the changing rooms because he used to play for a team called Blackburn that I watched when I was a kid. So I'd speak to him every now and then. Like, you can probably guess who I'm talking about with these clues. And he was like, excuse my wife, because like she was a wild cracker, man.
That's funny. No, I remember I used to work at a sporting goods store, and we would have people would come in who were famous baseball players here. I used to live like 20 minutes away from like one of the bigger, a professional baseball team, basically the Tampa Bay Rays. Probably haven't heard of it, but they're Major League Baseball, like our biggest baseball league. You know, they're like so like all the famous people would come to our town to our mall to do charity shoppings and stuff like that. So we'd have big name people in all the time. And I remember one of the guys who was a Hall of Fame retired baseball player, and people were like just there, hey, can I get your autograph? You know, like, hey, can we take this picture, whatever. You know, and then like he came to me and I rang him out because I was on the register at the time, right? And I'm just talked to him like a regular guy. Nice to meet you. Thank you. Have a good day. You know, and I think people respect that more. You know, like I
Yeah,
think it gets
I found that.
tiring. Like I'm not here for you. I'm here to buy something for my kid or whatever, and I'm trying to leave. Like treating
Yeah,
people like humans is a rarity in this day and age.
especially when they're celebrities as well. You know, like 'cause I used to work at a McDonald's, not dead close, but near a place called Media City, where in Manchester, like we're kind of similar to like the Hollywood of America. Like a lot of the media's filmed in Manchester in a big studio. So we'd get a lot of celebrities come to the McDonald's after filming, and whenever I'd serve them, I just act like I didn't know him, or if I did, it would just be like, "You're right, Freddie." Like Freddie Flintoff is a cricketer that used to come quite often, and I'll just be like, "You're right, Freddie. What you after today?" You know, instead of being like, "Oh no way, you're Freddie Flintoff." You know what I mean? So
Right.
I've always found that I'm quite lucky. I've met quite a few famous people, and I've always found like it's just better to talk to them like the people because they
Just
are at the end of the day.
exactly. At the end of the day, they're just people, and I think they even though you'll probably never be on their level, wherever they give you, they're a little bit more respectful and
Yeah,
appreciative of you in that interaction. So if heaven forbid you meet them again for the second, third, fourth time, like you may remember, like, hey, we had that positive interaction, like you said with the guy named
yeah.
Freddie or whatever. Um, this guy's not
Funny
going to hassle
story.
me. Let me go talk to this guy instead of the other guys, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
a funny story, right? There's a comedian that came to my McDonald's, and the night before he did like a big show. I think it was like the Royal Variety Show, which over here, like basically they do a big show in a big arena, and all the royals watch it. And I think he was on that, and he told a joke about McDonald's, and he was like, "Why do they always send you to the other window and all that?" Yeah, that's the whole premise of his joke. And I saw him coming through, and I said to myself, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to send him to that other window just to see if he notices. So I did. I said, "Oh, you're going to have to go to the other window and wait." And he looked at me, and I went, "No, I'm only joking. I watched it on Royal Variety last night." And he was like, "No way, no way. Do you remember that joke?" And I was like, "It was a good joke, to be fair." And I just wanted to pull it off on you, like, wow, you were here queuing up. You know what I mean?
That's
So
funny.
like that was a funny one where I got to use his own joke against him, which
Right,
was
yeah.
quite funny.
I'm sure he wasn't expecting that at all.
No,
And
yeah,
obviously, you weren't like kissing up to him or anything. You were just trying to.
yeah.
Ah, it was cool. That's cool. I like that. That's a good story. Oh man, it's cool that you got to meet like a lot of celebrities and whatnot. I mean, I haven't met that many. I mean, being here in like the middle of Florida, it's not like we're the entertainment capital of the world or anything. But
Yeah,
whenever I used to live in Tampa or near Tampa, and Tampa's a big city, so you'd have a lot of people coming in
yeah.
and out of there. So
The owner of Man United owns Tampa Bay
the Buccaneers.
football. Yeah, the football one. Like, I know they won the Super Bowl just before they bought our club.
Yeah, the Glazers.
Yeah, I hate them.
Yeah, yeah. That who still owns it? Is it the Glazers? Is that
Yeah, yeah. Like I wouldn't say own. I say they use it to take money out of. Like, but that's just my opinion.
and maybe they're using it on the Bucks.
Well, I've heard that team hasn't won a Super Bowl since either. So, like, that's what a lot of United fans have been saying is where are they putting this money? If it's not in the other team and it's not in our team, like, where's
In their
this money going
pockets,
to?
man. In their
Yeah,
pockets.
of course. Like, they were famous for being slumlords, like back in the day. So, don't surprise me.
Hmm. I don't know too much about them. I just remember when they bought the team, they built a new stadium, so they raised
Yeah.
our taxes 0.5%.
So they've literally done the same with you guys as well. Like, hey, these are good though. I've got to give it them. They're good. They're
Yeah,
good at hustling. But
they, they they hustled the city to build them a new stadium, and we only had to pay 0.5%. That was supposed to be a
yeah,
temporary 0.5%. Now it's a permanent 0.5%. So
no way. Just because they built a stadium, that's crazy. I would. This is what I never understand with America. You had a whole war over taxes. Like you literally separated from another nation because of taxes. How are you at a point where you're paying big taxes again?
it's people are voting for it, man. It's wild. Like,
Yeah.
and it happens incrementally like that. Like our sales tax, because we have a sales tax. Whenever I was
Hmm.
living in the other county, it was like 6%, and then it was
Yeah.
oh we're gonna vote to raise it to 6.5% because we want this new stadium, which will bring a lot of, you know, more
Revenue and
revenue to the
tourists.
city,
Yeah,
and then after a certain period of time, it'll go back down to 6%. Well, like a
never
few
did.
years later, they voted, "Do you want to keep the 6.5% so we can do renovations on the stadium?" And
Oh my
then
God.
it went up to 7%. Now I think it's at
So is
seven
the
and a half
stadium state owned?
percent.
So why does that affect your taxes? Like, it's
Because
there.
the city contributes. Like the owners will say, "Okay, I'll put up this much, you put up this much, and this is how much we'll bring to the city." So it's
Yeah, I
like a
suppose
matching.
like for paying for like traffic police around the area, stuff like
Yeah.
that as well. Like,
So
did you know how they bought my football club?
no.
So they're very clever, right? So what they did was my club was a public owned club, like the public owned the club at the time. I had shares in it as well. So you have to become a main shareholder to own a club eventually. But what they did was they become a main shareholder to where they could make decisions as, as not as club owners, but they could make big decisions for the club because they were big shareholders. So what they did is they got out a loan in my football club's name and then bought the football club with that loan. So my football club
Bought
still owes
itself.
a debt because they bought us. Like, we're still in debt because of it. Like, it's crazy what they've done.
So
Like,
they
they
took
are
out
the
a
fall
loan
of Man
as
United.
Manchester United to buy Manchester United.
Yeah, yeah. Like, and I'm not even exaggerating or anything. Like, that's literally what they did. Like, my club now still owes like 600 million or something towards this debt. Like, as you would know, Manchester United was quite successful when we were young. Like, it was the biggest football club in the world, kind of thing. When we were young, in like the 90s, early 2000s, we've not won a we've not won the Premier League since. Like, so they've literally just dragged us down. It's
Yeah.
pretty horrible.
Do you think they're just using it as a money making scheme, or
Yeah,
yeah?
it's pretty obvious because we had a great manager, Sir Alex Ferguson. He's one of the only people that I've called Sir, that has been knighted, and I'd stick with that title because I respect him that much. He was that good that we won everything under him. Like even when like Thierry, I know you was a fan of Thierry Henry. Like even when he was at Arsenal, like that was when Ferguson was there, and like we were still beating them most times of the year. Um, and we won everything, all the trophies. And then as soon as he retired, you could see that because we couldn't find someone as great as him, like the owners then didn't invest into certain things like the training ground and stuff like that. So all the standards everywhere around the club just fell to the floor.
You think um, like because I know like the transfer system, you guys have a weird system that doesn't make
Yeah.
sense in my brain. Like you can transfer players, like transfer their contracts and stuff like that. Do you think are they spending money like to bring in
Well,
players,
yeah,
or
but
like how does that
it's
work?
only so basically there's financial fair play rules. So a football club can only spend what they generate in revenue. And
Okay,
luckily enough, we're one of the biggest in the world. Like literally India, we're the most supported club in India, China, like nations with billions of people. We're a huge like asset to them. I think
okay.
China, because we're red as well, like it's good luck for them. So we make us, Real Madrid and Bayern Munich are the top three always at bringing in revenue. So we can spend based on our revenue. So yeah, we do spend based on our revenue, but that is literally our revenue that we're spending. It's never
Nothing that
anything
they can
above
contribute or
that.
anything like that.
Yeah, like they can if they want because our club justifies it with the revenue we bring in every year, but they just never have. Like
Mm.
they just never have.
So
Like
you
we've had
guys,
a Mancunian invest into us, is the richest man in England. He's just invested into us now, and we are starting to spend and to put like money into infrastructures like stadium and stuff like that.
so
Like our stadium had the third largest waterfall in the UK because the roof was broke. Like let's put it, that's Man United.
for
Yeah,
I thought you were going to say that they installed the third largest waterfall, but no,
no,
it's just
no,
in the roof leaking
just haven't
in the rain.
repaired it. Yeah.
That makes me laugh. Oh man. So
But
how does it work? I mean, we're going off on a tangent on Manchester United, but excuse my ignorance about it. But how does it work with like people like how would you say like developing talent? Do you have like a minor leagues that you can
Right.
pull talent up from,
So
or like how does that work?
yeah, kind of. So funnily enough, I went to a high school, a high school called Ashton on Mersey, where United would find kids. Like, just say, I'll give you a great example. Gerard Piqué came from Spain. He went on to win multiple World Cups with Spain, won everything with Barcelona, even married Shakira, the singer. He went to my school as a child because Man United sought him out in Spain and then got him educated over here in England to learn. So we have a massive scouting system. So we'll have scouts in Spain, we'll have scouts in Brazil, even USA. Every country we have scouts just constantly looking for young talent. And then if we're interested, we're able to offer them education and financial incentives to the parents to come over here, live here, train over here, get educated. The whole education thing is in case they fail as a football player, then they've got a good education to fall back on.
Makes sense.
So it's a very it's very complex. But so the team I played for was a team called Fletcher Moss. A lot of United players come from that team. Like so that would be a team that would get scouted quite often. Like I got scouted a few times by Man United and Man City and a few of the local teams, um, purely because I showed promise. You know what I mean? So anyone that shows promise, you will get someone will scout you, and eventually they'll see you at a football game. So they have these scouts that just go to all because in the UK we have such a large system of leagues. We have a Sunday league that this is what they call a Sunday league, which is non-professional, not even semi-professional. This is just people that just go and play on the weekend, but can go and win the league. And then so every one of them can enter the FA Cup, which is like a cup that. So halfway through the last season, all the lower down teams will be in the FA Cup, try to get to the level where Man United come in. And then if they get to play Man United and Man United goes to their stadium, they'll make more money than ever
Yeah.
because it's
Oh,
Man
yeah.
United. So we have a system where the top should feed the bottom, if that makes sense. And like we will never permanently always be in the Premier League. Like that's not a given. We can get relegated down to lower leagues, and then we'll have to come back up, like based
So
on our
win your
revenue
way
and
back
stuff
up.
like that. Yeah,
Yeah, that's it's interesting how relegation works. And I was just wondering because like if your scouting system is that advanced, right? Like you
yeah,
would think with all the people you're scouting and bringing in and all the money that they could potentially spend, like you would think that would translate to winning at some point, right? Like
yeah. Well, it kind of does. Like we've got a player called Marcus Rashford. Who's come through our system. You know, like so. The best example of this is we call it the class of '92. In 1992, Sir Alex Ferguson had a really talented group of lads that were mostly from Manchester, and then you had David Beckham from London, who was part of this group. He believed in this group so much, he sold a lot of his established senior players and brought them into the first team. So that saved us so much money because we didn't pay a dime for any of these players. Look at me using American words, a dime. We didn't pay a penny for any of these players. So like we're famous for that. We for 80 years we've had a youth academy member in our first team in every game for 80 years. Like that's what we're proud about. We always bring through Mancunian talent or English talent.
so,
But
but you haven't
so
won
if I contrast
a
that
Premier League
with Man
championship in
City,
how long?
pardon?
I said, but you haven't won a championship in how long?
No, oh I can't even count now. I think it's over 10 years now. We've not won the Premier League. Like we have won other trophies and stuff, which has kind of kept us relevant, and we've come second a couple of times. And
Gotcha.
but
So you've always been relevant and in the mix. You just haven't won. Is that fair to say?
yeah. Like last year, for an example, we finished eighth, which is terrible. I think that might be the second worst finish in my whole lifetime. But we won the FA Cup, which is the most prestigious cup in England. So that kind of glossed over a lot. So if we finish eighth, we don't get into European competitions. So we have three European competitions, the Champions League, which is the best of the best. That's what everyone wants to win. Then you have Europa League, which is like a second tier one, and then you have a Conference League. Like if we finished eighth, we wouldn't have got into any of them, but because we won the FA Cup, now we're into the Europa League, I think. So that will help us, like basically play teams like in Germany and compete for that one. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. Yeah. So that's it's a cool system, in my opinion. The tiered system to
Yeah,
where like, you have to pay or play like well to earn your
yeah.
spot. Basically, you don't just get to stay. So, is there? And I'm kind of going on a tangent, but again, it's fun. Is there like a story of like a team that was down in the low ranks and just kind of worked their
Oh,
way
mate.
up to like be
Yeah.
famous now?
So a few years ago, there's a team called Leicester, right? And they've always been in the Premier League, but they've always dropped out. So I'm not trying to say they've come from nowhere, but I can give you examples of teams that have come all the way up from the bottom all the way to the top as well. But this is the best example. So Leicester, they got relegated one year and then come back up. And then this is ironic, like they had a trip to Thailand and they all got caught with hookers and stuff. So the manager got sacked. So they got in this old manager called Ranieri, who was a bit of a legend, an Italian, like very good manager. He managed to win the whole Premier League with Leicester, which I think we spoke about on the last podcast because it was more closer to the time. But the odds of that was like 1,000,000 to 1, and I'm not even exaggerating. And they managed to win the whole like Premier League that one year, and it was just like no one could believe it. It was just so incredible. But I can give you an example of like try to think off the top of my head. Like Swansea was a team that managed to do that. They're Welsh, and they've managed to go from like the fourth tier, and then each year they've gone up to the third, the second, the first, and then to the Premiership. So like we do have quite a few stories like that. It's just Leicester were the first ones to actually win the league from that position. Like Manchester United, we were winning leagues in the 60s, like same with Liverpool. So the ones that win it now have won it before, so it's not that rare. But then when Leicester did it, it's just like, wow, no one predicted that, you know?
That's cool. So they were like the underdog story. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. What what is the division between United and City? For like Man U and
Oh,
Man City? Like, is it just part of what part of town you're from? Is it like one of them's new, one of
well,
them's old?
yeah, again, this is something like, remember when I was telling you about Liverpool, right? And I said not many people know why there's a rivalry between Liverpool and
Yes.
Manchester. But this is similar. Not many people actually know that if you were Catholic, you supported Manchester United. If you were Protestant, you supported Manchester City. So it was all religious. Like, I obviously come from a Catholic family. I might even have it mixed up because my dad's Protestant, my mom's Catholic. So, and when I say Protestant, that's Church of England, you know. So,
Mhm.
like, we have Church of England, the Queen's the Pope of that, and then we have Catholic, where the Pope's the Pope of that, you know.
Yeah.
So, like, we'd have two clubs in every city. One was for the Catholics, one was for the Protestants, and that's
Gotcha.
kind of how it worked out. Like, when I was young, I never hated City. I never disliked them. I always had them as a second team because they were always lower down the leagues, so they were never a threat. Then Saudi Arabia bought them, or one of them nations, Qatar, so one of them, and now they're literally funded by a whole nation, and they get sponsored by their airlines and stuff to like feed the books. They're actually facing 115 charges of financial fair play, which they're fighting in court right now. And to give you an example, Everton had something like just 15, not 115, and they got docked like 15 points. So they nearly got relegated because of it. So people are saying, well, if that's what happened to Everton, then City surely should get
Let's
relegated or
get
something.
relegated.
Yeah,
Uh, that's interesting. That's where that the money comes in, huh?
yeah, yeah. Like City win the league every year now. Like it's just pretty much a guarantee they're gonna win it. Like they just buy it every year. Like if someone has a good player, they'll try and buy him, you know, kind of thing. And they can offer him more money. They can offer him just everything more. Like the only reason a player would choose Manchester United over Manchester City is because of the history of Manchester United. You know, and they want to bring Manchester United back, which has happened a few times.
That's cool. I mean, it, it's always fascinating. Obviously, I have a degree in history, so like the learning the history behind it is pretty cool. It's more than just a sport, like they say. You know, like
Yeah.
it's
Oh yeah.
it's a culture, it's a lifestyle, and
It's a
quite
religion.
literally, it's a religion. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
exactly where I was
yeah,
going.
it is literally a religion. Like my whole family are Manchester United. Like I've got a couple of rogue uncles that decided to do City just to be different. But it is like literally, my gran is 90 today, and I wish her happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
And literally one thing, like she will all she's a United fan, and she's a 90-year-old lady, you know what I mean? So it's just it's just you're born into it, and a lot of people. It's changing now with the young generation because of the FIFA football games and stuff like. So a lot of the young generation are like, "Who's the best on PlayStation?" Right, that's who I'll support this year.
Right.
But the be all and end all is in most it is just two teams, and your family has supported that team for generations, kind of thing. And like, is it like that with yours? Like, because I know you mentioned Tampa baseball and Tampa football.
I mean, not really. I mean, not really. I'll be completely honest with you. Like, I'm a fan of a team called the Green Bay Packers. Like, I'm not from Green Bay. I just when I was
Yeah, I
a
was gonna
kid,
say.
I liked the
So where
colors.
is Green Bay?
It's in Wisconsin. It's like north,
Oh,
like in
okay.
the
Yeah.
way north of this the
Like you couldn't
country.
get any different from Florida and
No,
Wisconsin. So
it's
you
just
liked
I
them
like the
based off.
colors and
Yeah,
I like the players and you develop that affinity for it. I think there are people who we call them homers. Like whatever their home team is, like that's who they
yeah,
cheer for. And they're like the passive fans who are like you'll see them at all the games, but like they don't really care. But like the
yeah.
people who care, like I think they just pick their team.
Yeah, I kind of noticed that in basketball because the one American sport, because you guys, I'd say the American sports, the football, baseball and basketball. The one I got got to like was basketball. Like, obviously, I grew up with Michael Jordan with the Bulls, but my team was the Lakers. I loved Kobe and Shaq, and I think I'm right. Yeah, Kobe, Shaq, and who else was in that? There's a great Lakers team anyway when I was
Mhm.
young, and if I could stay up and watch it, I would because I found them really entertaining. But what I noticed was like a lot of their fans weren't from LA, like they were
Mhm.
like New York or just scattered all over.
I think
Whereas,
for us, and I can't speak for all Americans, obviously, but I feel like it's a more of a fan of players, especially in
yeah,
the NBA. Especially in the NBA, a fan of the player, and wherever that player goes, that's who you're a fan of.
yeah,
And if a player stays with one team for like it's LeBron James, everybody knows LeBron James,
yeah,
probably the most famous basketball player in the world right now. And he's
yeah,
played for three separate teams, and you have people who have a jersey for each team. There's no loyalty
yeah.
to the team.
I
It's
mean, don't get me
LeBron.
wrong, football is a bit like that. So, like, I love Real Madrid. Like that, I'd say Real Madrid is my second team, and that's purely because of the players they've had over the years. Like, they took Beckham off us, so I thought, all right, I'll go with him and watch them. They took Cristiano Ronaldo off us, so part of that's to do with it because they take our players, but another part was because they bought Zinedine Zidane, who I remember watching in the '98 World Cup, and him and an older Ronaldo, Brazilian Ronaldo, they faced each other in the World Cup final, and then a couple of years later, Real Madrid managed to buy both of them players. So I was like, right, this is the team I want to watch every week, as well as Man United, because it's Zidane and Ronaldo. And like I've got that. Funnily enough, they've bought an English kid who's really good called Bellingham recently, and I've bought Mbappe, who's like an awesome football player. So I'm kind of back in the Madrid camp now, purely because of the current players they have.
Yeah, I think like for us, it's because like Real Madrid. That's everybody knows that in America. Like if you
Yeah,
say soccer, like they probably think of Real Madrid. Um,
yeah,
it's the uniform is iconic. The colors, I think it was like the mid 2000s. They were like just dominating.
yeah,
All the media headlines. They had the best players. So like that's who. If you asked a casual soccer fan, name one
yeah.
European football league team or European football team, they would probably say Real Madrid.
Yeah, and I think as
That's
well
probably
with the
who I would say
Latin,
first.
yeah, with the Latin influence as well out there, because obviously a lot of Mexicans, Brazilians, like they're European team, because it's the same in every country apart from your country and Canada, really, where it's so fierce. So in Brazil, they have some great teams in Brazil, and they're so passionate for them, and the support is so like visceral. The same with like Argentina, Mexico, like it's just the same as here, where it probably works the same as well, where there's two teams in every city and it's for each religion kind of thing. And yeah, I've always found that a bit strange in America, like because part of me thinks, well, how do you have the passion like that kind of I just want my team to win because it's my whole family will be happy if they win. Like all my friends, like because where I live, pretty much everyone growing up was Manchester United. You know what I mean? So like you knew if we won something, the whole street's happy. You know?
Yeah, I think because we're such a melting pot, I guess. Like
Yeah,
everybody's, especially like in Florida, like we have people
yeah,
from everywhere that come here. So there's no loyalty to our teams. You know, like we have three
yeah,
professional football teams in our state. You know,
yeah,
like there's no loyalty. So
yeah.
um,
And that's what's another thing that a lot of English like lads like me, they're so proficient with geography purely because of football. Because like, oh yeah, Madrid, that's the capital of Spain. Oh yeah, Barcelona, that's the capital of Catalan, which is part of Spain. Like we learn all this through watching the teams, so I've always found that really interesting as well. Like I don't
oh,
think it works the
it's
same with you
it's
guys with the sports.
100% the same. Like
Yeah,
yeah, for sure. Like you know where because like our football teams they're in divisions like and the divisions
yeah,
are all the people who are close together so you know like they're up here and this teams are over here and then, like you know
yeah,
like exactly and you can learn geography just from watching sports
that's it. Yeah.
and weather patterns and everything else for that matter.
Yeah, yeah. That's another thing. Like people know like flight, like how long a flight takes to a place because they've been tracking it and just weird stuff like that.
Yeah,
But I've got a question. It's more regarding Manchester United. But did you ever get told about the air disaster that happened?
I think we spoke about this before if I'm not
Oh, did
mistaken
we?
but I
Yeah.
mean
To be
feel free
honest, I
to
can imagine myself. No,
to
no. I was just wondering if you knew it, like if maybe if like your elders spoke about it or something like that,
I mean
because.
feel free to refresh my memory because I don't remember and then we can
So
kind of end on
in the
that now.
60s, I think it's the 60s, or it could even be the 50s, we had a team that managed to get to the Champions League final, which was the European Cup I was talking about. In
Mhm.
that team, we had the first ever, like, this is after the air disaster, but in that team, we went on to have, like, the first ever superstar called Georgie Best, who ended up going to America and pioneering football out in America. But what happened was, it was winter and we were going to take off, and the plane crashed and it killed the majority of our squad. Um, like there's a few survivors, but not many. So then a lot of the other teams loaned us players because obviously we had no choice. So even like Manchester City and Liverpool, our biggest rivals, would loan us players to get through this period. And then people say that's why we're so famous because that endeared the whole world to us because we still 10 years later we rose from them ashes and then started winning leagues again and stuff like that. So I just wondered if your olders ever spoke about that or I imagine it kind of skipped USA, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I would imagine it's more regional thing, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's horrible.
No, I know, yeah.
I think yeah we had spoke about that in our older podcast if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken. So
So so what did you say you're into? The Green Bay Packers? Have I got
yeah,
that wrong? Is that right?
yeah,
So I thought I was mixing up Tampa Bay and
no,
Green something. So what got you into them other than the colours? Like, because something must have kept you sticking around.
well, whenever I first got into watching football in like the mid '90s, I was like 8, 9 years old.
Yeah.
Obviously the colors, but they were one of the top teams. They won the Super Bowl in '96. We lost the Super Bowl in '97, and we just were like one of the best teams in the '90s and early 2000s. So as I was growing up and I played football myself, like that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to be like those guys. So
Yeah.
I think it was just captivating. You know, first saw like, well, I like these colors, then I like the players, and then you just stick with
Yeah.
that team. And now like we've won another Super Bowl since then. So like we're always one of the better teams in the league, and
Nice.
you know that just
I
have
have
that
actually
loyalty.
heard of the Packers, to be honest.
Nice.
I have always wondered why Packers? Like, is there a meaning behind that? Or
Yeah, well, in the I think it was the 20s or whatever, the team was sponsored or owned. Well, the team is owned, but it's a publicly owned company or
yeah,
publicly owned
a
team. It's
PLC.
the only publicly owned football team in America now.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
That's cool.
it's owned by shareholders. There's not a one private owner. But anyway, so the Acme Packing Company like was the what they gave them the money to start the club. So
Right.
this company that literally packed boxes and stuff
Yeah.
was the sponsor for the club. So they were
Am
the
I
Packers.
am I mistaken thinking Acme used to be on Dynamite and stuff in the old cartoons? Is that the
Right.
same kind of thing?
Yeah, I think it was. I think it's an old timey word, but yeah, it's the same word. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah, right.
so whatever. But
That's
yeah,
intriguing. So you might have been called Acme, the Green
right.
Bay Acmes,
The Acme Packers.
possibly. Yeah, because I've always wondered what the hell. Like I've always heard of the name, the Green Bay Packers. I've always thought Packers. Like why? Like it's similar with LA Lakers. Like what are they on a lake? Like
Now the LA
you know.
Lakers, before they moved to LA, they were in a city called Minnesota, and Minnesota is
Ah,
the land of 1,000 lakes. There's like
yeah.
our bigger lakes are up in that area, but they moved from Minnesota to LA, but they kept the Lakers name.
Crazy. That is crazy. So I've just always thought LA and Lakers like were just so ingrained with each other,
Yeah,
like,
there's no lakes in
and they're
LA.
not even from LA. That's crazy. That's
Yep.
mad. Like
They moved.
I have heard about that with other franchises, like with football teams maybe. I didn't know it about LA. I think the New York Knicks is similar. Like I don't think they've originated in New York. I think unless I'm wrong.
I think they have the Knicks were called the Knickerbockers, which is like a type of pants that were.
Yeah.
But I think they were. But like, there's a bunch of different teams that have moved around, but have kept the name. And like,
Yeah.
the Utah Jazz, like Utah's this state with like no culture, basically. Like it's the middle of nowhere, but they moved, exactly. But they moved from Louisiana, which is big on jazz culture, but they kept that name. So like, there's quite a few examples of it in our sports where they'll just move cities to make more money, but they'll keep the name for tradition's sake.
That's cool. So does New Orleans have a team?
They do. Yeah, they have the. Wow, my brain is not working right now. They did. They had the Hornets, but the Pelicans.
Oh, okay.
There you go. New Orleans
Pelicans. I might adopt them because I've always wanted to go to New Orleans because of like it's home of the Blues in it. And no, everyone says that when I say, oh, I'd always love to go. That's the last thing I want to participate in, Mardi Gras. I want to go and sit in an old blues bar and just and be around like that kind of energy, knowing like this is where the blues come from. This is where so many great musicians come from on the Mississippi River and all that stuff. So I think I might have to adopt a New Orleans team.
Yeah. You get the home of voodoo in America too. That's
yeah. Well, that's mine. Muddy Wolf is two blues musicians mashed together, Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf, because I love them. Like for some reason, I've always loved blues music. But as soon as I discovered it, it's like I just connected with it. So New Orleans, I always felt like if there's one place I'm going, it's going to be there. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'm not a huge music fan, but I do like Tom Waits, who's kind of a bluesy singer. If you're familiar with Tom Waits.
No, I'm not. If he's more modern, I'm not really.
He's
familiar with more modern ones.
Really 90s, 2000s, and
yeah, I only relate to like old black dudes, like ancient black dudes. Not that I relate to him, but
it's more.
I always felt like
I get it.
You can feel their soul in the song, and like even though I'm so far removed from their lives, that they made you feel it. You know,
it resonates.
Yeah, because like, I'm not a big fan of like. Forget the English band's name that used to work with Muddy Waters. What are they called now? Mick Jagger's bands. I forget the name of the bloody band.
The Rolling Stones?
Yeah, the Rolling Stones. Like, I always liked them over the Beatles just purely because they had that blues influence over them. You know what I mean? Like, I know you're a big Beatles fan, yeah.
Awful.
They're from Liverpool. Like Oasis is better than Liverpool. It's better than the Beatles. Nah, I'm only joking, but Yeah, it's not like I don't like the Beatles, but I've just always thinking to the Rolling Stones as like the old school band. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing. You're either Beatles or Stones, right? That's
Yeah,
the thing.
yeah.
Yeah. Which
Have
which
we
band?
have you heard much about that Oasis reunion?
No, I think we briefly touched on it, and that's weird that it happened, isn't it?
It is because they hate each other. Like they have always hated each other. So I'm intrigued of how that's gonna work. Like there must be a contract that's saying, look, you've got to stick together for this because
Right, you got to do
they're so
this.
different, the brothers. I just don't know how it's gonna work.
Mm. I mean, money will fix a lot of problems, won't it?
Exactly. But what I find interesting is back in their heyday, they tried to crack America and they couldn't because they were too brash and too like they were basically like me and Michael, this thing. They just spoke a lot of shit and didn't care, you know. I, the more Mancunians you meet, you probably figure out that's part of
That's who
we're
you
quite
are, right?
naturally, yeah, we're quite naturally rock and roll. Like we just trash it and just say whatever, and you know. And what messed them up is they went in front of New York, American audiences and thought they could just say, "Oh, fuck off," and you know, give them the fingers, and you guys just didn't take to that. So I always found that funny. And yeah, so uh,
No,
part of me thinks like,
the
is
only thing I
America going to
remember,
embrace them this time round? Because I see a lot of young Americans
the only thing I
like
remember about this is
kind
like
of,
Wonderwall. That's it. That's the only
yeah,
thing.
yeah, that's what everyone says. Yeah, but
Like here in
do you
America,
know
that's the
what?
only thing we know.
I'd love to give you. I don't know if you're big into music, but if you are, and you want to find nice music to listen to, especially like rock and roll indie kind of music, I'd love to give you a playlist of my favorite Oasis songs, so you can actually see them for what they are, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've gone on record with this, and people have talked trash, but I don't listen to music like
Oh, really?
recreationally. Like if I have a choice in the matter, it's not my go-to. Like
Yeah.
occasionally I'll listen to something, but it's not a part of my everyday existence. If that makes
So it
sense.
makes sense that you're a Beatles fan then, because you don't listen to them. No, I'm only joking.
No,
But
I just for me like music, it's on in the background. Like
yeah,
it's the background noise to your life. And if I
yeah,
had to choose, I'm not going to listen to more background noise. Like I'll listen to a podcast, I'll listen to like a news, something like that, rather than music. So
yeah. To be honest, I've gotten that way in my older age, especially in my 30s. Like similar to you, like if I'm gaming, I'd have a podcast on in the background rather than music because I'd rather get some information
yeah, I
or
just
laugh or whatever. Like I'm not saying music doesn't provide that at all, but once you've heard one track, you've heard it, you know, kind of thing.
right.
So
And it's weird. It's weird to me because like Alicia, she's like music is her life. Like
yeah,
whatever mood she's in, she's listening to a playlist based on that mood. She's
yeah,
always constantly discovering new music to listen to, and like it makes her feel, it makes her like have these emotions. And I listen to it, I'm like, oh, that's cool. You know, like I don't want to
yeah,
dismiss it, but like that's just not that's not
yeah.
a part of my everyday existence.
No, yeah, I get that. Like, I've even come across because I've worked in the music industry and stuff, and I've even come across people in the music industry that kind of have that opinion too, like where they're producers and they're just like, I actually don't listen to music. I just enjoy making it as like a game or, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
it's like a puzzle that I fit together and then it comes out like that's their experience from it. So,
Yeah, and that was I don't know if you remember this. Whenever we did our previous podcast about 5 years ago, ever, I don't watch YouTube that much. Like I don't watch other
mm,
YouTubers. Like I'll watch
no,
a
I don't.
documentary, but like
Hmm.
it's something I want to do. I want to be doing this, but I'm not gonna sit down and probably watch like a whole. I just don't do it. You know what I mean? Like I want people to watch
No,
me, but
yeah,
I'm not.
I'm exactly the same. Like, and like you're saying, it's tough putting this message out there because we want people to watch us. But I think we're doing something that is close to what I'd watch on YouTube. Like, I'd like the odd podcast. So, try to think, I'd watch the odd Theo Von clip because he's quite quirky and funny. Like, I'm not the biggest fan. I don't think he's like a great comedian or anything, but he's a great conversationalist at the
Mhm.
right time, you know, if that makes sense. And
Sure,
like
sure.
Hilbert, um, but yeah, like true crime documentaries. I went through a phase of just watching loads of them on here.
I,
Um,
History for me, like I said, I'm a
yeah,
historian by education. That's what I went to school for, is to be a
yeah.
historian. But so I
So
watch a
did you
lot
ever
of
watch
documentaries.
Overly Simplified,
Mm.
which is something I watch quite a lot? So that's a good one if you're into history, because basically it condenses it down into as much of a simplified version of the retelling of a story as you can.
So I would probably go the opposite way. Like I watched like
Yeah,
4 hour long documentaries about Napoleon's battle at Waterloo. Like,
yeah,
like it's I'm kind of the opposite in that regard. But I don't know if you've, I mean, maybe you've heard of it just because you know where you are. But I went through like a 2 year period where I was addicted to Time Team. Are you familiar with Time
yeah,
Team
yeah. I
with
have
Tony
heard of Time
Robbins?
Team. Yeah, yeah. I don't
Yeah.
the English one. Like,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. No, I used to watch that as a kid. Yeah.
Yeah, I went through. I would watch them on repeat because it's
You
just
know
so
where he
much
come from?
history. Is
You know Tony Robbins? He was a
yeah,
comedian. Yeah,
Blackadder.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So
yeah,
that's mad. That's crazy. But I'm glad you've seen him after Blackadder now, and you can see
yeah.
what he's like as an older guy, just having
Mr.
living his
Bean
best life.
and Tony Robbins from Blackadder,
Yeah,
man. Yeah, of course. But yeah, I watched Time Team on repeat. You know, just watching like, oh, that's cool. This is where because American culture, Americanism. You know, we came from that area. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
like, yeah, it's good to know about kind of the older stuff, and especially like prehistory. I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
So yeah, Time Team
This
is
kind of leans on to a subject I want to talk about. I know we've gone quite long,
yeah.
so you can cut me short whenever you want because I get it. But so Kingdom Come Deliverance. Do you know who the
Yes.
main enemy in that game is?
No.
The Hungarians. Did you not know
um,
that?
no. I don't know. I've never played Kingdom Come Deliverance. But,
All
what
right.
is it?
So
It's like a medieval game, right?
yeah, so it's based. I can't remember the time it was based exactly, but it's when the Roman Empire ruled like Czechoslovakia, or is it? It's called Czech Republic now. I think I've just offended some Slovakians and Czechs. I apologize for that. But in those days, it was called Czechoslovakia. Um, and it's based in them when the Romans ruled it, and it's when the Hungarians are like invading it. So you know you're constantly fighting the Hungarians, and it's such a great game. Like to save the game, you have to learn how to craft a potion, which to do that you have to learn how to read. So you literally have to learn how to read in the game to then be able to craft a potion to enable you to save the game at any time, because it's called save a schnapps is what you drink. Like there's other ways, like you can sleep and save it or finish a mission and save the game. But if you want to save the game like a regular game, like where it's like, let me just save it before I do this crazy thing, like you have to learn how to read. Like, and you also can learn how to read Latin in the game for religious purposes. You know, if like you want to do a mission with like a certain priest or an exorcism or something, so you learn Latin to communicate that. Literally everything about the game, you start with nothing. So you're just a blacksmith's son whose town gets invaded by the Hungarians, and then you're left by yourself. So, like, so you're a young adult. So you don't know how to read, you don't know how to, forge swords, you don't know how to repair swords or your clothes or anything like that. And if you want to, you can learn how to be a tailor, so you can fix your own clothes on the go, or you can learn to be a blacksmith, so you can obviously I've learned it all because I played it that much now. My guy's like a master at everything, but I've always found it such a underrated game. Like it's literally in my top five of all time games. Like people go on about Skyrim, which again is probably in my top five. I'd put it above Skyrim. Like that's how good it is. You know what I mean?
And it's coming out with a sequel, right?
Yeah, yeah. The sequel's coming out soon. Um, but like I don't know if you're still into your gaming, but I honestly think you would love this game. Like the history that's in it. Like, I've learned so much about that part of Europe just through this game. Like because
Yeah.
it's based on real figures like
Yeah, I see it.
Sigmund
It's
of
set during
whatever.
the 1400s during the Holy Roman Empire, so that would be Germany. Whenever Germany took over, and they were kind of the leaders, and it's I see that King Sigmund and his forays into the Czechoslovakia area. So that's pretty cool. Holy Roman Empire is super interesting. If you ever want to nerd out into some history, Holy Roman Empire is definitely worth looking into.
But do you know Jimmy Carr, the comedian? He made a great observation. He said it's never died. The Holy Roman Empire has never died.
The Vatican is just smaller now.
Yeah, it's just the Vatican, and it now controlled a big part of the world through the Vatican, basically. So it's still like as present as it was in those days in a lot of senses, which I've always found really interesting.
Yep, Holy Roman Empire never dies.
Yeah, it doesn't. Like, there's literally still Roman towns in England. Like there's a road in my city called Washway Road that was built by the Romans, and it runs all the way through Manchester. Like, so there's still
another very interesting Tony Robbins series that he did was where he walked all the old Roman roads and how they connected all of your cities and stuff. And he would tell the history of that Roman road and why it was important. Talk about the roads from Bath and I guess Manchester and just like all these different Roman cities and what they meant to the economy and the culture and if they're still there. And it's just cool, man. Like a lot of that stuff is really cool.
Like, my city was named from the Romans. Like the Romans named my city because it was just a bunch of hills to that. And for whatever reason, they thought it looked like, like when a guy's got a bit of city, like they thought that's literally what Manchester means. It's like, it's like a man's SydeBoob. So, like, I've always found that ironic. So
it's funny.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Like, we literally got named after boobs, so that's pretty hilarious.
That's funny. I think that's a great place to wrap up this episode. Manchester was named after SydeBoobs, so we should be famous in Manchester.
Yeah. Make us famous, Manchester. And Michael Bisping, come on.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, you know what, Michael Bisping, you are the best Michael that I've asked to come on the show. Even though I did ask Michael Chandler. Like,
we asked Michael Chandler first, but he's a bitch. So.
Yeah. It's only because he's desperate. Like you've got a lot going on, Bisping. So he's been doing nothing for 2 years. So of course we're gonna ask him first. Like,
he's just hanging around waiting for McGregor to unretire, and then Bisping's out here hosting UFC events. So we're gonna ask him first. But you're the better of the two for sure. So come on the podcast.
Yeah, and also. This fits with it, but I want to give a shout out to Believe You Me podcast because I listen to that every now and then, which is Bisping's podcast. So,
I give a shout out to that, and then obviously we were talking extensively about Chael Sonnen. Chael, you have a great YouTube channel as well. I love your channel. If you want to come on here and talk shit about Bisping, we'll welcome that too.
Do you know what? That would be my dream. Like, if we ever get big at this, I would love the two people I'd love to interview or speak to the most is Bisping and Chael. Like, that would be ideal. And the fact that they fought each other would just be perfect,
Yeah, absolutely. So guys, if you see this, and we'll make this a clip, right? This is going to be a clip, and I want you to look in my face right now. Come on the podcast, hash it out, see who's the better trash talker, because we already saw in the octagon who's better, Chael. But let's see who's the better trash talker.
Yeah, I also want to end it with, fuck Michael Chandler, you little bitch. I just like trolling Michael Chandler. I don't know why.
No, that's great. That's a great way to end it. Fuck Michael Chandler.
Yeah. Fuck Michael Chandler. Stop being a man of your words.
Right. Come on the podcast. 5 years in the making. Let's go, bitch.
Yeah. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I don't know what bootstraps are and why people pull themselves up by you. But pull yourself up by them things that were probably existing in the 1700s and come on our show, please.
There you go. All right, man. It's good talking to you.
Yeah, nice one, mate. I appreciate it. Thanks for sticking around and chatting and that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, man. Catch you next
See you in a bit, bro.
Yeah.